Each show is its own funky music and its own exciting intro. Welcome everybody to Cause I Wanna, the show that happens when we want it to happen. And today I am joined once again by the dramatic, the exciting, the passionate, the appealing, the wonderful, the curious, our producer, Aron Ra. No, I've got Austin here. Austin Archer, my dude. Thank you so much.
Let's go. I'm not a crook. Democracy, America, USA.
Those are all words. Those are all things that mean something in context. It's an exciting time to be an American because we have
that's one word for it.
Yeah, we have yet another situation for, like, what's this now? The fourth election cycle in a row where we have to say that democracy is on the line and that we're actually fighting for our freedom and mean it more than the last two times when we meant it, because those times were plenty scary and we were like, surely it won't get worse than this. And then it fucking did. And like that, what is this, dude? What's going on?
It's so crazy. I was talking to a friend yesterday who's really struggling with his vote, and he's really coming up against like his conscience and not wanting to vote for what he views as being complicit in the genocide in Gaza. And all this stuff, of course, is the conversation we've all been having, and it's all very defensible and understandable and very emotionally resonant. But, you know, I was trying to explain to him, like, the role that third-party voters and protest voters have played just in the 21st century alone in, like, fucking up American politics and skewing the Overton window to the right. And he was like, yeah, but there wasn't a genocide going on in 2016. And I was like, no, I know, I get it. Like, that's the thing is, I don't think that third-party voters or protest voters have ever had as good of an argument as they've had in this election cycle. But that has not stopped them from doing what they're still doing in this election cycle, which is playing a spoiler role and paving a path for right-wing authoritarian fascism. But boy, they have the strongest, the thing that's made it harder in this election cycle is they finally actually have a pretty damn good argument that makes it, it makes it sound like we're terrible people who don't care about little kids dying.
Right. Yeah. It is hard because I get that. I get that argument all the time. It's like, oh, you've been talking about this genocide the whole time, and now you're going to vote for the party that's prolonging it. And it's like, dude, the reality of the situation, because I can appreciate the argument. I really, really can. I've made similar ones. The reality of the situation that I'm trying to impress upon our listeners is that either Harris or Trump are going to win. That's what's going to happen. Doesn't matter. Like, even if all of the leftists out there went out and voted third party, we don't have a consensus on which third party candidates to vote for, nor is there one that's like, I don't want to say there isn't one that's great, because I love listening to, you know, Claudia de la Cruz and whatnot talk. That's phenomenal. They're not going to win. And so the reality is we're going to have President Harris or President Trump. The absolute worst case scenario for Palestine with President Harris is more of the same, which I'm not saying is good or acceptable, but I am saying that the absolute best case scenario with Trump is that it gets exponentially worse, because we're talking with Harris. She has at least been pushed so far to call for a ceasefire, to call for a two-state solution, to say that the loss of civilian life is you know, way too much and is gone too far. To say that the humanitarian suffering in the region is atrocious, way fucking more than the Biden administration has said. You know, I separate her from that because she's on her own ticket now, but way more than Biden has said. This fucking one curl, dude. Meanwhile, you've got Trump over here saying they need to finish the job quickly, and if he was in office, they would have had all the support that never would have lasted this long, and that all the images coming from out of Gaza of dead children are just bad PR. And like all this other crazy shit, as if he isn't going to just say, hell yeah, bombs. I love bombs. Bombs make my dick look big. Let's do bombs. And like, that's the whole thing. And so like, you're kind of at this position now, and I hate using this rhetoric because I can understand where it's problematic, but it really is fucking true. You have to decide who you want to organize under. Who do you want to be protesting? There's a reason why people don't protest about Palestine at Trump rallies. It's because it isn't going to fucking work. It's not. And his cult isn't going to let it work. He's not going to let it work. Even if you get up there and make a big scene, he's not going to fucking listen. It works a little bit at Harris rallies, and it's working more and more. And there's a reason for that. So like, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now with it, man. It's just like you've got to 364 days and 3 years. You've got to protest the two-party system, protest the Electoral College, protest the way that this country works, and we should be. On election day, we need to fucking vote for Harris. We got to do it.
Yeah, there's so many kind of pernicious things about the way that our electoral system works, and also lies about that are intended to disenfranchise voters and discourage voters. Particularly one that's been really disturbing to me in this election cycle is the idea that I see this from protest voters a lot of like, well, my state's spoken for. I'm in a state that goes red all the time, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to vote for Stein to really let the Democrats know that there's a percentage of us that, and it's like, that is this idea that states cannot be flipped is one of the most pernicious problems. I mean, the Electoral College is garbage. It's totally undemocratic garbage, and it should be abolished. But before we can have the conversation of how to abolish it, we should also talk about the fact that just because the Electoral College is what it is, and just because some states kind of hold their form as traditionally red or blue states, does not mean those states are not in play. Millions of voters stay home in those states, and this is red and blue voters, stay home because they believe that their vote is meaningless in those states. And we don't actually know what the voting power of the people in those states actually is, because they've bought into the lie that it doesn't matter. And I really don't like when I see protest voters in blue states saying, well, my state's going blue anyway. And it's like, yeah, but if enough, like, these margins can actually be thinner than you realize. And I would encourage all people who think that way to actually go back, at least in the 21st century, and look at the margins in your state with like senatorial seats and congressional seats, and especially in the presidential races, and not just the margins with who showed up, because sometimes people will go, oh, well, Trump won my state 60-40 or 65-35. And it's like, that's with who showed up. And that's because there is a strong propaganda campaign that said, if you're blue, there's no point in showing up in this state. We never go anything other than Republican. And it's like, cool. So that means maybe millions of blue voters didn't even bother filling out a ballot in your state. And had they actually turned out, it could have been competitive and maybe gone purple, maybe even flipped. And I don't know. I think anything that disenfranchises voters from the slim amount of power that they have is something people really need to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's kind of the big thing, is like when we see the sheer magnitude of the pro-Palestine rallies that we've been seeing over the past year, like hundreds of thousands of people from all different walks of life out filling the streets, because it's not fucking complicated. When you see the images coming out of this region, like it's bizarre if your heart isn't torn to shreds looking at these. And so like we see the size of those rallies, and it's like, you actually have some serious power here. And then you're telling me that you're trying to, like, that many people are going to decide that the move is to not participate, to send a message. And it's like, dude, I promise you 110%, they do not care about your vote. I promise you, no matter what party you're talking about, they're not sitting there like, oh, damn, Tom didn't vote. What am I going to do? Like, I guess they're doing whatever the fuck they want. And so, like, as long as they're winning, it doesn't matter. And if you're going to say, well, I'm going to deliberately lose to send the message, not only are you making things worse in Palestine, but you're making things exponentially worse for people here. Not just, and common everyday people who pay taxes, for one, but also, more importantly, LGBT people, women, disabled people, veterans, people who need medical care constantly, chronically ill. Like, that's so many people millions of people are going to be hurt tremendously here in America. And also the genocide is going to get worse. And also other genocides in which we are doing either minor or major part of are going to get worse. And so just not playing the game simply is not an option. And that's what we're here to talk about. We get a lot of callers who are considering voting third party, who are considering not voting at all, who are Trump supporters. And we're trying to do more and more shows leading up to Election Day to get through to those people and kind of turn the sights on our own audience quite a bit. because a lot of our audience is leftists and liberals and people who are generally agreeing with us on a lot of stuff and are now talking about sitting out of the game in order to not feel like they have blood on their hands. And that is the worst solution to the trolley problem that I can imagine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that you talked about, deliberately lose is the word you used. I just had a guy on my podcast. His name's Jack. He goes by Watchful Coyote on TikTok and on YouTube. Very smart guy. But we were talking about this, and the words that he used I really liked. And this is sort of, I guess, gets us sort of into horseshoe theory of how tactics can become the same on extreme ends of spectrums.
Yeah.
But he talked about how conservatives will engage in something that he calls performative success, and leftists will engage in performative failure. So conservatives will kind of, take book burning as like a success. Like, hey, we're taking down the liberal education system, and we're burning these liberal pornographic books and stuff, and it's a net harm to their families. Or transphobic legislation, the way that transphobic legislation hurts their kids, like it hurts the children of the people who are writing it. And so it's a performative success that actually does them a net harm. And in the same way, leftists engage in this performative failure of like, well, we'll make the system fail so that we can punish the leaders for not adequately meeting us on our terms. And all they're really doing is cutting off their nose to spite their face. They're just hurting themselves with this performative failure.
Right. I'm big on direct action, and I'm big on protest, and I'm just not that big on protest voting. I think there's one function of voting, and it is to make your voice heard. And if you deliberately make your voice heard wrong, then you just aren't heard, is what happens. And I've yet to see, maybe I haven't thought about it hard enough. Maybe there's somebody who can convince me. Maybe we'll get a call today that can convince me. I have yet to hear an argument why deliberately not being heard is the best way to be heard. But we'll see. We'll find out.
Yeah.
We've already got some calls pouring in.
All right. Shall we go to the phones?
Let's do it. We've got, let's see here. So, we've got 3 that are so far that are pretty interesting. I'm going to start with Dave, who pronouns he, him, calling in all the way from the UK. Not sure what's going on here, but let's find out. Don't think anti-Harris voters have the best argument when you look at the other candidate. Also, wouldn't RFK Jr. spoil things for Trump? Sounds like Dave's going to agree with us a lot, but there might be some nuance here that I'd like to touch on first. Dave, you're on the line with Forrest and Austin. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I called in after watching what you guys were saying a couple of minutes ago, and I think the thing that bothered me a bit was the concession, I think, from Austin at the beginning, saying that essentially this is the best argument we've seen from protest voters about what's happening in Gaza at the moment. And unfortunately, I think we're all on the same side, that Harris is the better choice, that Donald Trump would be far worse for the policy goals of these people. But unfortunately, I think if you say something like, oh, these people have the best arguments so far, some people will take that as validation. They won't listen hard enough to see the but. Surely I think if there should be more time spent on attacking Donald Trump's policy on this. And I mean, I'm not from the US, obviously. I'm wondering if the Democrats in the US or Harris or anybody else have really held Donald Trump's feet to the fire on this, because Donald Trump has said basically that Netanyahu can do whatever he likes. And has that not been used as an argument? Or
so what I would say is that, like, the reason I think for Austin's framing there, and I'm not going to speak for you very much here, Austin, but like, is because, yeah, we have hit those angles. And I can tell you from interacting with our own audience, they're not usually as useful. When you talk about holding Trump's feet to the fire, that isn't a thing that happens. It just isn't. Everybody on our side of the aisle already knows he's an asshole, and there's nothing you're going to say that's going to get them more excited about not liking the guy. And there's, on the other side of the aisle, there's nothing you can say to convince them that he isn't the Messiah. We're talking about right now, Biden, who isn't even running, just said that, a lot of Trump supporters are, I think he said racism is garbage or something like that. I forgot exactly how I phrased it, but there's a big thing going around now that Biden's calling all these Trump supporters garbage and stuff. Meanwhile, this week, Donald Trump on stage with Tucker Carlson said out loud in front of a live audience that he thinks that Liz Cheney should be like lined up in front of a firing squad to see how tough she is and you know, see if she can be shot at.
I mentioned Liz Cheney when you said that. I was
and so like that's when we talk about double standards, good gravy, they're real, y'all. And so for me, I'm not interested in trying to play the game too much with people on my own side because it's just not worth it. I think it's reasonable to give them the concession of saying, hey, I get it, dude. Like this shit's fucking heavy and it's real. However, I promise you the alternative is worse. You know what I mean? Trying to meet them on that humanity because oftentimes it gets...
Sorry.
It gets... I was just going to say, it often gets It often gets spun as, okay, well, then you never actually cared about Gaza in the first place. And it's like, no, I promise we did. Here's why that's not good enough to solve this. Austin, this person is talking about your argument. So what do you say?
Well, I would just say, Dave, really quick that what we actually, at least what I actually find when I make posts about, you know, the ineffectiveness of protest voting or the futility of it is people say, why don't you spend more? So you're asking, you know, why aren't you spending more energy holding Donald Trump's feet to the fire? What I see more often from protest voters and third party voters is, why don't you spend more energy pressuring Kamala? Why don't you spend more energy criticizing and pressuring her campaign instead of trying to vote shame us for our political strategy? And the problem there is, like, you know, like that's not actually accomplishing the goal that we're trying to like I'm already voting for Harris, and there is already significant pressure being applied to her to try to be stronger with Israel. And as Forrest talked about earlier, we've already seen the fruits of those efforts. We've already seen her be, at least vocally and publicly, much more forceful on the issue and much more sympathetic toward Palestinian life than kind of any other mainstream viable players in the political game. You know, Bob Woodward came out and said that he was present, you know, reported that her meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, she was incredibly forceful with him and did not mince words, and that Netanyahu was really upset and probably would have been more publicly upset if he weren't afraid of what might happen under a Harris administration. He knows that she could be the next president of the United States. So anyway, her campaign has to play this whole situation quite delicately to make it across the finish line of this campaign cycle. That's something that third-party voters and protest voters don't really seem to understand. And when we're talking to them about, hey, here's why your protest vote isn't accomplishing the goal that you want it to accomplish, our goal is to convert as many anti-Trump voters as possible, to convert as many voters into an end goal of not having another Trump presidency as possible. And, you know, just spending all of our energy criticizing Kamala Harris doesn't really accomplish that goal. It might be more morally
nothing of the sort.
Yeah,
absolutely nothing of the sort. There's a time and a place, in my opinion, for criticizing your own candidate, and that's after the election.
And maybe during primaries, we kind of didn't have a primary process for Kamala Harris in this election, but there are times to point out the problems. But when it's when we're 3-4 days away from this thing being a done deal,
your own campaign.
Exactly.
Yeah, why am I not criticizing Harris? Because she's my candidate. That's the answer. In
all honesty, like,
into the White House first.
Yeah. And also, I do want to point out that, like, I do criticize Harris on some things as well. But that's because, like, I'm not in a cult. And so I'm willing to have normal political discourse where I'm like, here are the things I do and don't like, but this is still better than the other option, so we're going to go for it. The way that, you know, humans talk, instead of it's either this or this forever. You know what I mean?
As do
like,
I.
I've spent have to be a saint to vote for her.
And I've criticized Harris openly throughout her campaign, and there's, you know, lots of videos of me on record saying what I disagree with her on, and, you know,
Yeah, definitely. And you know, to what Austin was saying earlier, like, I understand kind of treading this careful line, especially considering the fact that, like, Biden is now saying that he is, like, threatening Israel to cut off arms support in, like, a month, like, at, like, weeks after the election. So now for her, I have been saying for a little while that I think she would win monumental amounts of support by calling for an arms embargo, by calling more strongly for a ceasefire, by saying that she's going to cut off weapons support. But if she took that stance, she could win a huge amount of support from all these crazy leftists and liberals that are out here talking about protest voting. She could win all of them over in a heartbeat and win in a landslide. But now Biden has put her in this tricky position where for her to do that would be challenging the person that she's been on the ticket with this whole time. She's running against her own president, and that's problematic.
Yeah. So I think that actually might put her in an even more dangerous tightrope, because if we want to secure as many electoral votes as possible, there are other states that might be a bit more winnable in this election cycle, where we need the votes of center, independent, and Republican-leaning people who don't like the fact their party has turned into a cult of Trump. So there's a tightrope there. On one hand, you've got the people you just mentioned. On the other hand, you've got other people who don't want to vote for Donald Trump instinctively, but that kind of rhetoric might turn them off. And I mean, the most important thing, I hope we're all in agreement, that the most important thing immediately, we can work out the details later, is getting over the line and into the White House first. And that's what makes this a problem.
Yeah, there's kind of a basic arithmetic that most campaign managers are operating on when they're deciding whose votes they're going to try to go after hard in which areas. And so you see this a lot from protest voters and third-party voters, where they'll say, how come they're not doing more to try to earn my vote? And first of all, unfortunately, a lot of protest voters, like in the voting block, they account for about less than 2% of people who actually turn out and vote. But, and they'll say, how come they're courting the votes of Republicans and centrists? Well, in the voting arithmetic, converting a former Trump voter, someone who voted for Trump in 2016 or 2020, is a +2 for your campaign. It's a -1 from Trump's campaign, and it's a +1 for Harris. Converting someone who maybe voted for Biden in 2020 to just vote for that same ticket is just, it's almost a neutral. You could say it's a +1, but it's really like, we're just trying to retain that +1 that we already should have. And so it's the even if it's a +1, it's still every single person that they're able to get from red states, every conflicted Trump voter that they're able to pick up is a net 1 over every, protest voter that they're able to pick up. And also, that's the thing about Trumpism, is Trump from 2016 till now, all that guy does is lose support. He doesn't gain a lot of like new movements of support. His base stays strong and stays ravenous, but he definitely lost support from 2016 to 2020. And I think that he continues to lose support, but it's because he just increasingly is Donald Trump. And if you can pick up, a couple million people even who used to vote for him, it's +2 for every one of those votes. And that's,
for sure.
And I think it's also very important for the future political landscape of the United States, because if you want to assuage fears of, the Democrats are just going to become a quote unquote woke cult, or however the hell you want to define it, making the Democrats a broadly based, reasonable party compared to the cult of Trump is going to be very important for making what one of the better terms, sane politics. You want one party that reaches out to normal people, for want of a better term. And if the Republican Party wants to collapse inwards into a cult of Donald Trump, well, on their own heads be it. We want another party that is broadly based, that's reasonable, that has room for diversity of opinions, that can accommodate everyone from AOC to Joe Manchin. Having a party like that is better than another extreme polarized position, in my opinion.
Good luck finding one.
Well,
especially
I
here in the
that's what the Democrats are trying to work towards. I do. I think that's what the Democrats are trying to work towards.
And unfortunately, unfortunately, the Democrats are now significantly more right-leaning than like most of the left, party. Like when we talk about left wing in America, we're talking about center to center right for the rest of the world. And so like AOC and Bernie Sanders and all these people, these are centrists globally.
They're liberal Democrats
that are talking about like
UK,
and so like it's just not appropriate. But like anyway, we're gonna move on. We got a couple other callers, but I appreciate you calling in, Dave, and talking to us for a few minutes.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. Thanks very much for having me.
Take care, Dave. Bye-bye. Super nice dude. We've got lines filling up right now. We've got 2 people who are already in the queue, and then like a bunch of people who are being screened at this moment. So we're gonna move on to the next one, which is, I think this might be, I don't know, I can see this going a couple of different ways. We got Raven, any and all pronouns, calling in from Numbat Yearnings, talking about little creatures that want stuff. I don't know. Who is talking about reaching out to their MAGA loved ones. I'm interested to hear what they have to say about this, because, like I said, this could go a couple of different ways depending on what this call is. Raven, you are on the line with Forrest and Austin. How are you doing?
Hey, guys. So this is a peaceful call. It's not a troll or something. Cool. So what happened was I wanted to like try to get as many votes as possible for Kamala, because I thought like we could kind of like change some swing states in our favor. And I normally dismissed a lot of MAGA people in my life. I was just like, I'm done with you. Like I just can't see eye to eye with you on anything. Like, you're voting against me. I'm done with you. But one of my friends that lives in Florida, and she's like Puerto Rican and Japanese, and she's trans. I was like, please tell me you're not voting for this idiot, right? And she told me she's not voting at all. Like, she just doesn't understand. She's not in the loop of politics. And I was like, you can't vote for him. Like, he's going against everything that like we are, everything you stand for. Like, please vote, please no. And then she went down this rabbit hole of explaining to me how like I think a lot of MAGA aren't all evil. Like, honestly, I used to think that. But from what I was learning from her and her family, because her family is super MAGA, that they just are fed such ridiculous stuff on like the news and their outlets and stuff like that. She didn't know like left from right and up from down because of the stuff they watch. So I gave her the website that you guys normally put out, that is like showing side-by-side comparisons of the political views of the candidates. And she was looking through that, and I was explaining to her, and she immediately, she was like, all right, I'm voting blue. Like, I'm sold. Like, I'm already registered. I'm going to go vote. But not only that, because she was an unpersuaded voter, right? But she said, I want to try to get my family to vote as well. I was like, there's no way you're going to get them. They're like super diehard MAGA. But then a few days later, she came back and she's like, I actually talked my mom into reading the polls and explaining to her. And she's like, I'm not for Trump anymore. She was a diehard MAGA person. So I was like, oh my God. Like,
so that's phenomenal. That's a phenomenal story. It's not very common, in terms of what we hear. Generally speaking, you can find clips online very easily that are so many clips that it stops being anecdotal evidence of people like the Good Liars or Walter Masterson or Conan the Insult Comic Dog, showing people either real things that Trump has said or fake things that Trump has said that are like extra ridiculous and horrific. And these Trump supporters will find an excuse every single time. There are plenty of clips of them showing like, hey, here's this, here's this quote from Biden talking about how we need to destroy the enemy from within and use the military to go out against political dissidents. And they're like, oh, that's fucking evil. That's what the Democrats do. This is fascism. Oh, actually, sorry, Trump said that. Well, yeah, he's absolutely right, because that's what the Democrats are evil and all this. And so like you can find tons and tons of these out there. And so like if you got through to somebody, that's great. In terms of reaching out to people, like, I'm sorry, Austin, did you have something to say?
Oh, no, keep going. Finish your thought.
Okay. I was going to say that in terms of reaching out to people, I would say it really depends on how close they are to you. You specifically put in your call screen here, you're talking about loved ones, and I think that's awesome. The same thing that I would argue in terms of religion, you need to decide how much this conversation is worth your relationship, but also you need to decide how much their vote is worth your relationship. If you are a trans person and your spouse, parent, uncle, whatever, if you have a loved one in your family who is voting for the guy who says that he is going to eradicate trans people from public life, then you might need to have a serious conversation. And there is a really powerful video going around recently. I believe it was on TikTok of this girl just saying like, you cannot say you love me if you're voting for this guy who is, like you said, against everything that I am. So I'm really happy to hear you've had some success. For people out there watching, I would not take that success as an inspirational story quite yet, because it is very rare in my experience. But hey, like, try. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, go
ahead.
I was just gonna say that. I was just going to say that while doing this work, whether it's talking to Trump supporters or whether it's talking to third party or protest voters, I do get a lot of messages from people in my life, and sometimes just strangers, that say, like, why do you even bother? Do you actually think that anything you're saying is getting through? Sometimes they'll say that in a supportive way, where they'll be like, oh man, I respect you for trying, but I don't think the message is getting through. And sometimes they'll say it in a rather derogatory way, where they'll just be like, nothing you're doing is changing anything. Why are you even bothering? And I do think that part of doing some of the work that Forrest and I do, whether it's talking to theists or anyone that we disagree with and trying to sway minds, is understanding that 95% of the people in our audience have their minds made up, whether that's that they agree with us or disagree with us, and very little that we say is actually going to move the needle for them. It's in these like really slim margins where you encounter a person who isn't quite sure what they think or isn't quite sure what they believe, or just is open to new perspectives, where you start to see the effectiveness of your messaging. And it's enough for me that I do get I get 3 or 4 messages a week from strangers saying, hey, just so you know, you helped change my mind on this or that topic, and thanks for doing that. And these are I mean, I'm getting tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of messages and comments every week that I'm not even seeing, but every once in a while I'll get a DM from someone that says, just so you know, I used to think this, I don't any longer. Your videos helped. And I just want to put that out there for someone who's trying to do this on a one-to-one basis. Educationally speaking, there is no better model than one-to-one, than person-to-person, like person-to-person conversation. So you have a better chance there than you do of arguing with someone in a comment section on social media. But the conversion rate can be tough. It can be really hard to change minds.
For sure. For sure.
I just want to say one thing. Like, if I would have tried to talk to my friend's mother and her grandparents, which were also converted, I don't think I would have got them. Like, they wouldn't have listened to me, like you were saying. But because I got my friend, she was able to get them because, like, you know, they're open to her. So
yeah, for sure. And like, sometimes that is a strategy you have to take. And I really do. I agree with what you're saying. I don't think that all people who support Donald Trump are immediately evil people. A lot of them, and this sounds condescending as fuck, and I understand that. I'm acknowledging out the gate that I understand how patronizing this can sound. I think a lot of them are very misinformed as to who he is and what he actually stands for, and what the other side is, because there is so much propaganda going on right now, where you have him getting up on stage and talking about how literally the Democratic Party has made it so that children can go to school and get a sex change operation from their teacher without their parents' permission. Oh my God, I would be freaking out too if I believed that shit. So like there's so much misinformation and disinformation and propaganda coming out of the right now, that even when people take the time to hear what Trump has to say, it's just like, oh, fuck it. It's better than the demons I've been hearing about. And so, yeah, I think there's something to be said for like compassionate dialogue and for connecting with family members, but like, you gotta be ready. I don't want to give anybody false hope is my thing. So I'm not saying don't try. Please understand. I am saying do not be surprised when somebody, especially an evangelical Christian who believes that Trump is sent by God to do the work of Jesus and blah, blah, blah. There is no power on earth that you can pull against them to convince them, because they literally believe in something that is more powerful than everything that is guiding Trump's hand. And so like, you got to be prepared for when you're dealing with a cult to deal with cult behavior and cult thinking. Anyway, with that, we're going to jump on the next call, but I really appreciate you, Raven. Thank you so much for calling in and talking about this with us.
All right.
Thanks, Raven.
Bye, guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye. We're moving fast with the calls today because we got a ton of people calling in. I'm very happy about it. Usually we have more people in the chat screaming Trump 2024 and getting banned immediately than we actually have callers. Today, we actually have some callers, which is great. We are going to move on, though. Oh, we lost. Oh, yeah.
Are you telling me that somebody said Trump 2024 in the chat?
Plenty.
Did that happen? Okay, because I just want to, I mean, that's actually an argument that I hadn't considered. I just want to say, like, I've been doing this work for a long time. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never seen somebody spam Trump 2024. That, if you actually think about it, if you actually break it down, like Trump 2024, all caps.
It's
crazy.
honestly like, you think about it. Oh my God.
That's actually,
oh man.
Like, I don't know. I hadn't heard that one yet. And it's making me go, what have I been doing with my life?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's
That's crazy.
Oh my glob. We gotta, I'm laughing because we also got a call and then from somebody who dropped, for fans of the show, will remember Imperious from the other day that called in and could not contain his emotions and kept screaming. And so we finally had to let him go. Apparently he was on Matt the other day too. And apparently he tried to call into this show as well. And Arden just had to drop him because apparently he's using more ableist slurs. The dude does not know how to have a conversation without dropping, jokes about mental handicaps and things. Just holy crap, dude.
Lots of
I say this. Yeah, it's apparently he was making jokes about Down syndrome this time. Who knows? But like this is a guy who apparently has lackeys as well, because we've got people in the chat saying like, why can't this guy call in? I want to put it. Normally, I wouldn't mention it. I just want to put it out there that apparently, since this guy and his cronies are watching, like the dude is too emotional to have a serious conversation. He just cannot keep his emotions in check. Keeps screaming, keeps flying off the handle, and cannot stop saying things that he knows are going to get him dropped and banned, which means he's just using them as an out when he's scared of a conversation. If he can't handle a real conversation, he just says something shitty and he knows he's going to get banned.
Listen, I
said some shitty things to Eve apparently too. My glob.
Yeah, I think that men should have just as many rights as women. It's just men are. I just wish they weren't so emotional. I just wish that they could control. I wish. You know what I'm saying? I think that men should be treated right. I wish they could. I think that men should be treated equitably and should be able to vote and all that stuff. But like, it's just kind of like they're a little hysterical. And that's the thing is like in a boardroom, I don't want to deal with a hysterical man who's going to be making me, hold his hand and everything. I need to,
all these wars that men have started over the years, it really just shows just how fragile they are. Like it really just, they're unstable. It just sucks.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to, again, can't stress it enough. I don't like, we get calls and usually I have the call screen here. It says who's calling, where they're calling from, and what they're calling about. And normally I can kind of predict what that's going to go. I can't do it anymore on these shows. I don't know how these are going to go. So you're going to hear me say it again and again. This could go one of two ways. We got Jay, pronouns he, him, calling in from Miserly Igloos, talking about snow dwellings that are also stingy. I don't know how it works, but that's where he's calling in from. Who said, oh, no, never mind. He dropped. He was on hold for 11 minutes with and the whole call screen was Trump 2024. That's what we were going to talk about. We were going to hear this new argument, but I guess hearing him say, damn, let's try something different. We've got, let's go with Samir, pronouns he, him, calling in from Wobbly Anglerfish. Says that we should vote for Jill Stein because she's the better choice. Better choice to lose? Great. Let's find out. Yeah. Samir, you're on the line with Forrest and Austin. How you doing?
Yo, how's it going, guys?
What's up?
Doing really well, man. Never had a bad day.
That's great. That's great. That's great. So I want to tell you how I think it's bad for us to vote for Kamala Harris in the light of the Joe Biden presidency. And I feel like Trump has been very kind of unfairly judging from his first presidency. That's what I think is so interesting about this election, is that we have terms from, we know what we can expect from both administrations. And if I look at what happened, and what I mean by Trump is a terrible option, don't get me wrong. I would vote for Jill. But why I'm saying that is that by me voting for Jill, if that ends up getting Trump elected as president, it's still a better outcome or not a better outcome. It's still not as bad as a lot of people make it out to be, as no, you need to vote. Like, you shouldn't vote for Jill. Voting for Jill is terrible or whatever. I think I should be allowed to vote for Jill because she stands for what I believe in. And I think if that ends up getting Trump elected, it's first of all the Democratic Party's fault for not being able to change in light of how the progressive movement has changed, unlike Republicans who were able to, because MAGA represents what most people that vote for MAGA believe in, unlike the Democratic Party. And two, a Trump presidency is not as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. I keep hearing calls about him being a Nazi, about him destroying democracy, all that stuff, and I think that's just nonsense. What do you guys think?
So, Samir, you've given us a lot here. I'm sorry, Austin, do you want to start?
I'd love, Samir. That's a lot of stuff. Just to go into a few of them. You said you want to vote for Jill Stein because you want to be able to vote for someone who is in line with what you believe in. Even if she can't win, you're okay with that the result of that choice being Trump, because in your mind, a Trump administration would be preferable to a Harris administration, or at least not as bad as some people say. Am I accurately characterizing the gist of what you said?
Yeah.
So as far as it goes, as far as Jill Stein is concerned, let's talk about Jill Stein and what she's done to earn your vote. So she is saying the kind of things that you want to hear a candidate say. She is expressing the kind of positions that you want to hear a candidate express. I imagine, as it pertains to the genocide in Gaza. The thing about a third-party candidate or a protest candidate like Jill Stein, who knows that she is not actually viable or competitive in an election, is she can tell you whatever you want to hear. She stands to lose nothing by telling you that. So let's say that your values, when you're saying, I want to be able to vote for a candidate that adequately meets my values. Let's say that your biggest concern as a voter is, I want to vote for a candidate who is who's telling me that they're going to buy me a new house with lakefront property, and whichever candidate tells me they'll do that, and hold on, Samir, and whichever candidate does that, whichever candidate says that they'll buy me a new mansion with lakefront property, I'll vote for that person. Jill Stein can say she's that candidate, and because she knows she'll never have to make good on that promise. She knows that there's no chance she's ever going to be elected, so she does not have to fulfill that deal. So I totally understand wanting to vote for someone who pays lip service to the things that you claim to care about. But if that vote has no viable chance of actually resulting in the things that candidate is talking about, then what are you actually doing? If that candidate is saying, hey, under me, the genocide in Gaza is going to stop tomorrow. Awesome. Really cool. She has no chance of actually doing that. She has no chance of actually winning. So what does it actually matter that she's saying that's what she would do if there's no possibility of her actually doing it? What is the actual practical real world utility of the promise she's making there?
The real world utility is very, very small, and it's minute. It's that I get to vote for.
I'd argue it's non-existent. Right. I'd argue it's non-existent.
No, it is existent to me. I get to sleep with a clear conscience. But the thing is that
but how
the other
I have an issue with that.
Voting for someone that sells that gives bombs to fucking genocider. How's that for?
Right.
And
I'm just curious to know, I'm curious to know. Are the rights and lives of women and trans people worth your conscience in that way? Are you willing to sacrifice their lives in order to vote your conscience here on this issue?
I'm voting Jill. I'm not voting Trump. I'm not.
I
believe that.
But as we mentioned at the beginning, the reality of the situation is that either Trump or Harris are going to win. As Austin also just said, Jill Stein has no actual viable path towards victory. She's not even on the ballot in all states. It's not going to happen. So you voting for her doesn't actually do her any good, and it doesn't do America any good, and it doesn't do Palestine any good. The only person you are serving by doing that is yourself, by saying, well, at least I didn't pull the lever and I didn't participate somehow in this genocide. Meanwhile, when Trump does win, because the thing is, everybody who's going to vote for Trump is going to vote for Trump. It's only people who might have voted for Harris that are talking about voting for Stein. So when all these people pull away from Harris and vote for Stein, and Trump does win, and then immediately attacks trans people, intersex people, women, immigrants, disabled people, veterans, are those people's lives and rights worth it for you to have a clear conscience in this one single vote.
Yeah, well, when that happens, I feel like we should blame, one, Trump voters, or number two, the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris.
No, we're blaming you. We're blaming you because you deliberately voted in such a way to allow Trump to win. There's a difference between voting for Trump and voting so that Trump wins. They're usually synonymous. They're not always synonymous. What you're doing is you're not voting for Trump, but you're voting so that Trump wins. And so, yes, the Trump presidency does fall on you, and the rights and lives lost because of the Trump presidency does fall on your conscience. So you're sitting here saying, I have a conscience on Gaza because I didn't participate in the thing. Meanwhile, Gaza does get worse because Trump is going to be worse in Gaza. And also, everybody's lives here, especially marginalized communities, get worse.
Okay, first of all, I genuinely do not think there's anything worse that Trump could do in relation to the relationship between the United States and Israel. I legitimately think
you are not very imaginative.
More starch Zionist, or more starch than the Biden administration. And this is what I dislike.
If you cannot come up with a scenario in which Trump makes it worse, you're clearly not very imaginative, because even the Biden administration, which has been like very helpful in this genocide, I think 70% of the funding for this entire operation has come from the United States. Even the Biden administration has been somewhat conservative with what it could have been, and has at least had the spine to say, hey, this has gone on a bit too far. We shouldn't be doing this. Trump has said they need to finish the job quickly, and that it wouldn't have even lasted this long under him. Guarantee he would give them more money and probably send our troops as well.
So I don't want to get into like this like speculative discussion about like how Trump could be worse or whatever, because that's not really the point. And that's the reason why I brought my second point. I feel like, and let me say the whole thing. I feel like since, and I think this started since Obama, and I'm 25, so I've only known as far as Democratic presidency, I've only known Obama and Biden, and this is what I've noticed. These neocrats, they're so good at like these amazing speeches. They're so good at talking about peace, at talking about ceasefires, at talking about like a sort of like a international policy that favors not killing people. But when I look at outcomes, and that was my second point, when I look at outcomes of presidencies, Trump says some crazy stuff. Trump is surrounded by some crazy people. I feel like we got a more peaceful 4 years. So for all the crazy rhetoric that he's saying about Gaza, about all this stuff, I low-key think it's better to roll the dice with Trump saying something crazy and not doing anything.
Can I ask you
the Democratic Party that has given us the same thing since Obama, since Libya.
Let's talk about the outcomes of Democratic presidencies versus Republican presidencies in the 21st century. We'll just keep it there. In the time that you've been a voter, what outcomes did you witness during the 4 years of the Trump presidency that you feel like were better for your life, were better for Americans, were better for marginalized communities? And let's actually see if we can break these down. What was working better under Trump than what you've seen the last 4 years?
I'm way better effort in normalization, like relationships with quote unquote enemies of our country. Relatively less involvement in wars abroad, as opposed to pretty much any president for the. I mean, all the presidents that I could remember, I don't think anyone has been less involved in wars than Donald Trump. Like I don't want to talk about the economy and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, he's terrible. He's a terrible person. Like I know he's a terrible person, but I think the Democrats have delivered terrible outcomes. And I think unless they change, unless we force them to change.
Samir, the reason why I asked that question is that a lot of people have this problem of just whoever is president at whatever given time, whatever happens under that administration, they automatically assign it to them. I was hoping to get some specifics from you of things that you had seen where you could say, oh, during the 4 years of Trump's presidency, this or this happened. So I could point out to you like, oh, that specific thing that you were excited about, that was a result of an earlier administration. Like oftentimes, especially economically, it takes like up to 2 years for any new administration to even implement their new policy and get the ball rolling on that. So what happens is administrations inherit conditions from their predecessors. So I mean, like day one of the Biden administration, Joe Biden swore into office in January of 2021, and conservatives were already blaming him for the price of gas and for the price of groceries. It was impossible for him that far into his presidency to change he can't just call, the International Monetary Fund and go, hey, I'm president now, make gas more expensive. That's not how that works. But a lot of people go, whoever is sitting in that chair, whatever the price of groceries and gas is, it's their fault. And they have a hard time understanding the cause and effect of administrations and the long-term effects of administrations. So the Trump administration, make no mistake, was disastrous for the American people. The appointment of his 3 Supreme Court justices is going to have ramifications that last decades. Yes, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Samir, you need to stop talking while you just stop and just listen for a second. So the overturning of Roe v. Wade happened during the Biden administration because of the Trump administration. But people like yourself see that and go, well, if that's what we get with Democrats, then what's the point of voting for Democrats? But it wasn't because we elected a Democrat as president that Roe v. Wade was overturned. It was because Donald Trump was elected as president. It just happened during the Biden-Harris administration. But that is like, there are things that bleed over into other administrations. Now let's talk about international affairs. Let's talk about wars. The fact that there were no new wars during the Trump presidency is a matter of complete coincidence and circumstance. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump being a better international diplomat than Joe Biden. The fact that the attack from Hamas on 10/7 happened during the last year of the Biden administration has nothing to do with Joe Biden's international policy. It has nothing to do with Democrats versus Republicans. That's just when Hamas did that, and that's just when Israel decided to launch their most aggressive bombing campaign in the modern history of this colonialist project of Israel. Like, it has nothing to do with, oh, we wouldn't have done this under Donald Trump. It would have been worse under Donald Trump. Donald Trump would have enabled them to do even more. The fact that it didn't happen in the 4 years of Donald Trump has nothing to do with the merits of Democrats versus Republicans. It's just when a thing happens. And you got to really be careful about just looking at when a thing happens in the world and then immediately going, well, who's president? Whoever's president is automatically responsible. A lot of times that's not how it works. It either has nothing to do with the president, or it's literally something that was the fault of the previous president. And so it seems like you're falling under this kind of logical fallacy of like, whoever's president, when something bad happens, it's automatically their fault. But like, it's insane to say that the reason why the genocide in Gaza was amplified in the last year of the Biden administration is because Joe Biden was president and not Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with that.
Okay, so a lot you said, and I would like to address everything. So first of all, you asked me for specific stuff that Trump did, and I'm not like that, like, man, I'll just say, I'm not that stupid to think that, well, it's because of Trump that all this good stuff that happened during Trump presidency, that it's like, that it's due to him being president. I can judge his actions during his presidency, and some of them were like great, like the justice system reform, like I think it was called First Step Act or whatever. Like active work to reduce unemployment. Active work to reduce
unemployment was the highest that it had been. He had record high unemployment, and the recovery in unemployment under the Biden administration has been happening at a record rate. Like, you're just factually wrong about that.
Yeah, but because of COVID, like, you're being like honestly disingenuous if you say.
So you're going to blame. So you're going to blame Trump's bad economic record on COVID, but you're not going to blame Biden's economic struggles in the first few years of his presidency on COVID. That's just all Biden. That's just Democrats being bad.
Okay. That's a fair point. I don't think that. What I'm trying to say, I'm not here to argue that Trump is good. I'm here to argue that that Trump did some before I get to what I'm trying to argue, I would like to talk about the international policy and him being a diplomat and all that stuff. Even that, you're not being fair. Trump did have some challenges that during his presidency, but it didn't materialize to any big war. And you can say that because he was a good diplomat. Like, for example, the Taliban and Afghanistan. It's obviously terrible what's going on with them taking powers, but at least we don't have troops sitting in Afghanistan today. Russia was doing
he didn't start any new wars. Sorry, he didn't start any new wars. That doesn't mean he didn't make the ones that we were already in worse. That doesn't mean that he didn't continue to perpetuate war. That didn't mean he didn't drop. He didn't drop like the biggest bombs that we had, literally just the biggest bombs we had. He didn't assassinate political rivals and also praise a bunch of dictators and sit down and call people like Putin and Ping and Un, great dudes. Like, so just to say that he didn't start a brand new war, okay. So what?
Yeah,
he continued being a warmonger, and then he pulled us out of Afghanistan haphazardly and left the mess for Biden to clean up. So, like, it's not like he had a clean record here.
Yeah, the Afghanistan pullout is not a flex. The Afghanistan pullout is not a flex. It was objectively terribly handled, and it completely invalidated 20 years of us losing soldiers in that region. Of hundreds of thousands of lives poured into this, millions of lives affected and lost, and then just to fumble it on the goal line, just to bungle the end of it. Yeah, we got people out of there, but it was a total mess the way it was handled.
Not to mention the allies that we abandoned there, the people that were helping us and that were then left helpless to just fucking die because we left them behind. And that was his choice. The fact of the matter is, dude, all I'm hearing from the 17 minutes of talking to you so far is like a lot of you saying, I understand Trump is terrible, Trump is bad, but he's not like that bad. And you don't have anything to back up why Harris would be worse. You don't have anything to back up why a third party candidate, which isn't going to win anyway, is going to be a good thing. You just keep saying, I'm okay with it if Trump wins because fuck it. And like, I'm sorry, that's just not good enough.
Okay. So your point is we should stick with whatever the Democratic Party gives us all the time, because I bet you, man. No. I bet you in 4 years.
That's the opposite of what I've said.
The next election is also going to be the most important election of our lifetime, and it's also going to include some like stupid neocrat with like fake, like progressive ideals that they like to like throw to people to get them to like. And then that's the Democratic Party. You have the right between.
So that all sounds very provocative. It is not what I have said. In fact, it is the opposite of what I've said for this entire show and several shows in the past. No, I'm not saying we should just take whatever the Democratic Party gives us all the time. I'm saying 364 days and 3 years, you should be focusing on reforming things. You should be protesting. You should be fighting. You should try to get a better system than the two-party system. You should try to get a more comprehensive and cohesive party that isn't so radically ridiculous in the way that they pander to both sides in order to get absolutely nothing done. We should have something that is doing more than just trying like hell to maintain the status quo. We should have something that is a farther left push. We should have a lot of things, and these are all things we should be fighting for 3 years and 364 days at a time. But on election day, you have two choices. Do you want the fascist cult leader who is going to make things exponentially worse for literally everybody, or do you want the person who the absolute worst case scenario is that they're more of the same? I would take more of the same rather than worse, even in a situation like this.
Okay, man. If you want to say I'm like helping a fascist get elected, which is literally what you're saying.
Yes, it is.
Give me like just one rational argument how Trump is a fascist. There's none.
Easy.
You just say that because you don't like Trump, and I get it. But he's not fascist.
See, again,
how much time do you have,
Samir? Yeah. I literally was starting to speak before you continued on. You can't do it, which is exactly what you did a second ago. You're not actually listening to what we're saying. You're deciding what you think we're saying and arguing with that. It's crappy. I can easily explain how Trump is a fascist. I can go down a long list. First, let's start with the definition of fascism, right? Fascism is usually characterized by something that is ultranationalist, authoritarian, usually largely militaristic in maintaining centralized power, either dictatorial power or autocratic power, and it uses violent suppression of dissent and any kind of protest. Those are like some pretty big general themes when we talk about fascism. So let's talk about what you called in about. You said that you're not going to vote for Harris because of Gaza. Trump says that we should be using the military to crack down on the enemy within, who are radical leftists that don't support him. Trump says that Gaza protests are raising lunatics and Harris supporters that should be deported. Even student protesters should be deported if they're not supporting our benefit, our part in the genocide in Gaza. Trump said that we would help pay the legal fees. This is in the first term. Said he would pay the legal fees of anybody who beats the shit out of a protester that protests against him. Starting there. Also, we can go into, when we talk about consolidation of power, Trump's main goals, or the entire first term, and a lot of his rhetoric now, is all about consolidating power around himself, especially when you look at Project 2025, which he claims not know anything about, despite the fact that he is personally named over 300 times in the document, and it was written by people that were the closest to him during his presidency. The whole point is to allow him to eliminate anybody who isn't one of his personal cronies and supplant them with people who are unqualified and loyal. When we talk about ultranationalism, the entire idea of make America great again, despite the fact that there is no single time when we were definitively great, because that doesn't make any fucking sense. And also, we are more progressive and more united and more forward-thinking now than we have ever been. If anything, we are greater today than at any point in American history, and still have a lot of growing to do. It is all based on the fascistic tendency to conjure up a fake past that they can be nostalgic to in order to try to fight for a beautiful fake future. Not to mention the fact that he uses patently fascistic language, like when he talks about immigrants poisoning the blood of America. That is legitimate Nazi shit. When we talk about him being a Nazi, it's because he says shit like that, which actually sounds like something that you would not be able to tell if it came out of Hitler's mouth or not. So those are just a couple of examples. I would be more than happy to continue, but it's definitely not just something we're saying. It is actually something that we're calling out as a pattern. Austin, what do you say?
I'm just going to really quick just say a very short list, Samir, and I am genuinely curious. Did any of that land on you? Did you go, oh, geez, you know what? Good point. That's pretty fascistic. Or are you just, nah, you guys didn't do it? I'm genuinely curious.
You guys are right. The thing is that you guys are right. My whole point.
No, but you said we were wrong before. You said that we were just saying he's a fascist without being able to prove it.
Let me say, what I'm trying to say is that you guys are judging him because of his rhetoric, but the dude doesn't say anything that he can or will actually do. We've seen that do you remember the crazy stuff?
That's not true, Samir. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
Not only is that not true. No, hold on, Samir. Not only, I'm going to go ahead and mute you, Samir, for just a second. Not only is that not true, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. I know he talks about wanting to be a fascist dictator. He literally, actually, with his own fucking mouth said, yes, I would be a dictator on day one. He said that. And he also told a group of Christians at a big fucking Christian nationalist convention that if they vote for him, they'll never have to vote again. He said that. What you're saying is, I know he says he's a fascist, and I know he says fascist shit, and I know he says he wants to be fascist, and I know he says he wants to do fascist shit, but he can't. So we should just let him try. That's insane. Not only is it not true, he absolutely can do that shit. Look at who he's putting on the Supreme Court. Look at how he's already fundamentally restructured our democracy.
He's been doing it while not being president. He's been doing it he's been doing it for 4 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Supreme Court ruled that the president can do literally anything as long as it's an official action with no guideline on what an official action is, completely flying in the face of the reason why we got rid of Nixon. So, yeah, he is a dictator. He is a fascist. He's already fucked shit up and is continuing to do so. And your actual reasoning here is we shouldn't allow the person who believes in democracy to be the president. We should let the fascists do it because maybe he won't be allowed to be a fascist despite his best efforts. That's lunacy, Samir. I'm bringing you back on now.
Yeah, you're right. I know you're right, bro. The thing is that I'm
cool. Then don't vote for him. Vote for Harris, who can actually beat him.
I don't like Harris. But beyond
Samir, I don't give a fuck. I really don't care if you don't like her. I don't care. I want to go back to this too. I've been wanting to go back to this for a while, of you talking about so I can sleep at night for my conscience. That's a problem with a lot of protest voters, is it's so self-centered. It's so about your ego and about what feels best to you. But I want to get to an example that's ultra sympathetic to what you're going through. Okay. Let's, rather than the trolley analogy, let's make it even more pointed. Let's say that it's this straightforward, that someone says, here, take this gun, put it against this person's head. If you shoot this person, if you don't shoot this person, we'll kill 1,000 people. And those are your options. You shoot this person or we will kill 1,000 people. And you say, fuck that. I want to be able to sleep at night. I'm going to throw this gun into the river. And they say, if you throw that gun into the river, we're killing the 1,000 people. Those are your two options. It is so human and relatable that you do not want to participate in that dilemma. It is so natural that that you have a somatic response to that says, I'm not going to be able to live with myself if I shoot this person in the forehead. I won't be able to live with myself. But when someone is explaining to you that the direct consequence of you refusing to participate in that decision is that 1,000 people will be killed, but you go, at least I don't have to see it. At least I can pretend like it wasn't me. I'm going to throw the gun away and I'm just going to tell myself a story that I didn't do it. Even though they go, no. There is no opting out of this. You don't get to opt out of this, because this is the reality of being born into the world that we live in, unfortunately, is you are born into a lineage of governments and ruling systems that kill people. You are born into a lineage of colonialism and brutality, and we all are, and we are all born with blood on our hands, and there is nothing we can do to get rid of it. And I'm so sorry. It sucks. So I completely understand the emotional core of you saying, I don't like Harris and I want to be able to sleep at night. But when someone is telling you, tell yourself whatever you want, we're killing 1,000 people if you don't pull the trigger on this one, and you understand that is the decision in front of you, and you still say, I'd like to pretend like I didn't do it, that's fucked up. You're lying to yourself to preserve your own self-righteous ego. You're telling yourself a story saying, well, it wasn't me, I threw the gun away. And you're washing your hands of something that you have no right to wash your hands of, that you have no ability to wash your hands of. And you're walking away from the decision, knowing full well that the consequence of your self-serving choice is that more people will be harmed. And that's what you're doing.
But it's always the same story. That's the thing. It's not like every 4 years it's the same story.
Yeah.
So protest the rest of the time to make it better. Fight like hell, vote in local elections, vote for Congress, because most of the shit that people complain about the president is actually the House and the Senate that's fucking them up. Vote for Congress, vote early, vote often, vote all the time, and try to make this place better so we get somewhere where we're not, because for the past, at least 20 years that I know of, this country has been sliding further and further to the right, to the point where, like we talked about with one of the other callers, the most left-leaning Americans are like center-right for the rest of the world. So, Samir, we're going to move on. It's been 30 minutes, but I hope you make the right choice, man. You don't have to like Harris. You just have to not want a lot of people to be significantly worse off. Like I said earlier, the absolute worst case with Harris is more of the same. The absolute best case with Trump is way, way, way fucking worse. And you've got to make that choice.
All right. Appreciate y'all.
Take care.
Appreciate you. And thanks for being a good sport and hanging in with us there, Samir. It's not, it's for a lot of people, it's not an easy or fun choice. It's not about getting to pick the person that feels the best. I see that all the time. People go, it just doesn't feel good. Yeah, it doesn't feel good in a lot of ways. It doesn't feel good to.
Hard choices rarely do.
That's what like being woke is. Like the idea of being woke to the injustices of the world is like being aware of the way that systems are oppressive and systems are inherently corrupt and systems inherently marginalize people intentionally, that they intentionally create class systems and like being aware of that stuff is hard. It's hard existential work. It hurts the brain. It hurts the soul. It hurts the conscience. But in order to participate in a meaningful way, you need to acknowledge that that is the reality of the game you're playing and then play the best strategy you can. And saying I refuse to play is a coward's way out. And it's not, it really is. To me it does not make your conscience, it should not make your conscience any cleaner unless you're lying to yourself.
It really is hard. And it's just, I don't know. We could go on for a long time. We're preaching to the choir. We got lines absolutely full. So we're going to keep going. Jay called back. Jay from the Miserly Igloos calling back in saying Trump 2024. Let's talk to him because we just talked about why Trump sucks for a long time. Let's talk to somebody who actually outright supports the guy and see where it goes. Jay, you are on the line with Forrest and Austin. How are you doing today?
Hey, can you hear me?
What's up, Jay?
I can hear you just fine.
Hello, can you? All right, I was trying to make sure. Yeah, I say Trump 2024 because I do believe, I don't know how you guys, what's y'all stance on abortion. I watch the show usually when y'all talking about God or whatever. I am an atheist. But I do believe that abortion is murder, late term at least.
Okay. So then do you believe that people
well,
first explain that to me for just a minute. Like you say abortion is literally murder. Do you mean that? Well, yeah. Well, I want to get down to actually what you're talking about.
And I ain't even gonna say late term.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you're not talking about like
6 weeks.
If someone's been pregnant for 3 months, you think that's fine?
Even start forming. No, when it start getting a heart or a brain, or when it even start forming, that's when I think it's a life. And you
Jay, can I ask you?
It's not a choice between the mother's body. It's a choice between that's a whole nother person. It's not like you can't choose to kill somebody just because they leak.
So Jay,
that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jay, I'm just going to take you at the word. You know, Forrest can probably give you a much better argument for the scientific personhood of like when something should be, you know, scientifically considered a viable human being. I'll just take you. But I'll just take you at. I think that. Correct me if I'm wrong. The basis of your position is, you know, death. Life is sacred, and we should do everything we can to protect life. Is that correct?
Yeah, not in a divine sense, but yeah.
Yeah, but just in that, like, human life is something that we should legislatively try to protect. We should try to prevent death if we can, prevent harm if we can. And in your mind, abortion is creating undue death. Is that correct?
It's really damn near. It's really, to me, the worst type of murder. It's damn near we're killing the next generation, and we already fucked up.
So what I would say is, if life is the thing that you're trying to preserve here, that you do not want, you know, people getting killed, are you aware that in states where abortion access has already been restricted, states with the highest rates of abortion restriction, where they have the strictest abortion laws, are you aware that the infant and maternal mortality rate goes up, that more babies and more people carrying pregnancies die? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I actually am, but it's not. We're not killing them. They're not murdering them. You feel me?
Sure we are. Okay. So you're saying that states. So if the state is sponsoring letting people die because it's illegal to save them, it's illegal to do a life-saving procedure like an abortion. The state is saying you can't do an abortion, so you have to let them die.
What you mean it's illegal to save them? But we're talking about abortions. We're talking about abortions.
Right.
You mean illegal to save them? Like, I mean, not my bad. It's like basically you saying you got to kill the baby for them to survive, because an abortion is a termination of pregnancy. So like in our terms, right? Unless we talk about different stuff.
Yes, often you do have to kill a baby to save the life of the mother. Often. Yeah.
Abortion. So just to be clear, abortion is just abortion
on the table,
is.
My bad.
Jay, you're gonna have to wait. Jay, you're gonna have to wait. Abortion is just the termination of a pregnancy. It is the ending of a pregnancy. So even a miscarriage is actually clinically called a spontaneous abortion. So when we're talking about abortion, we're not just talking about just killing babies and all this stuff. We're talking about, well, hold on, I'm finishing. We are talking about terminating pregnancies in lots of ways and for lots of reasons, many of which do fall into the condition of saving the life of the mother. So if someone is pregnant and that pregnancy, say, for example, is ectopic, there is no way for that pregnancy to become viable. That is, in your classification, a living baby whose life will be ended, because if we don't, the mother and the baby will die. So we're ending that pregnancy, and yes, the baby dies as a result in order to save the mother. Now, the language that I'm using there is not appropriate, in my opinion. I'm just trying to make sure I'm getting it through to you, to what we're actually talking about. This isn't killing babies. This is ending pregnancies to preserve the life and rights of the pregnant person.
Yeah, but that's not how most abortions is. That's not what we're talking about when we say abortion.
No, that actually is.
I'm thinking about a
that
toxic
is
situation. No, they're not. No,
in late-term scenarios, yes.
But let's say it is. That's another reason for somebody to maybe reform what we mean when we say abortion, because that it seems like a obvious. Nobody's gonna let just like a baby that they know is gonna die kill both of them. It's the same. It's the same thing. We don't along those moral arguments of what I was arguing.
That's what's happening right now. When women are bleeding out in parking lots and hospitals because the doctors are afraid to go to prison if they perform a medically necessary life-saving abortion.
Do you know how many abortions happen? Do you know how many abortions happen a week? Like right
that's
now,
not what I just said.
I
was responding to why. Right, but what you just said was wrong, and I'm trying to address it.
What was wrong? That's not what most people think of when they say abortion.
I don't care what people think of. We're talking about the reality here. You said that, there's no one. What you said.
I'm talking about where I'm coming from.
I don't care what people think of. We're talking about actual medical procedures and actual lives. What you said a second ago. What you said is I don't. Yeah, I know it sucks. Jay, I'm going to mute you for a second because you keep talking over us. What I was talking about is what you just said a second ago, where you said nobody's doing abortions or nobody's withholding abortions if the mother's life and the baby's life are at risk. No one's going to stop doing that just if they're both going to die. Yes, that is exactly what is happening now because of these hardline abortion bans. The fact of the matter is, what we're talking about is preserving the rights and the lives of pregnant people. That's what's actually happening. And when you restrict abortion access, not only does it not actually lower the amount of abortions that are happening, it just lowers the amount of safe, legal abortions that are happening. People still get abortions at the exact same rate, but also it dramatically increases infant mortality and maternal mortality rates in that area. So you have now more death, less medical, I should say, decreased positive. I don't know how the word, worse medical outcomes. So worse medical outcomes, more death, both for children and for parents, and also the same amount of abortions. The way that you actually reduce abortions is through comprehensive sex education, easy access to contraceptives, maternal care, and you have to allow people to make their own decisions. And yes, getting the decision to have an abortion is really fucking important, because not only does it protect the parent, but it also protects the potential kid who would be brought into the world with parents that aren't emotionally, financially, physically, whatever, capable of taking care of that kid. There's a million reasons why abortion is actually quite a good thing that you want to have available. No one's excited. No one wakes up in the morning like, fuck yeah, let's go have some abortions. That's not how it works. We're talking about protecting pregnant people and protecting children. That's what we're actually talking about here.
Also, Jay said something. He was like, well, if that's what it is, then we need to sort of reframe how we talk about abortion. We need to reframe these terms so that people understand that, Jay, we already have been doing this. That, like, if you're just, if this is the first time that you're hearing that, like, an abortion is a medical procedure that is intended often to save people's life, especially in late term scenarios, the scenario you said you claim most to care most about, that the thing that you're most concerned about is late term abortions. Pretty much 98% of late term abortions that take place in the third trimester, are life-saving interventions. That's what they almost always are. Very few people carry a pregnancy to term and then on the last day go, you know what? I'm going to call an audible here. That doesn't really happen. And you're saying, well, then we need to make sure that people know that. Hey, we've been trying to make sure that people know that. The word has been out there. This has been decades of work of medical professionals trying to educate people on this. And unfortunately, there's just a lot of really successful propaganda that gets to people like yourself.
I'm going to bring you back on now, Jay.
Look though, before y'all went on that little whole spiel about what abortion was, I was trying to tell y'all, I understand what y'all saying, the termination of a pregnancy, right? But what I'm saying is, it does have to be brought into a different type of, like if a word like abortion can be so broad to it's where somebody is on the brink of death and they finna die versus somebody just choosing, I don't want to have this kid, I'm finna kill it. And it can encompass all those things, then that's not, I'm not talking about every single instance of abortion, but it should start off being banned.
Jay, this is exactly as useful as when people tell me that us biologists need to find a new word for theory because people don't understand it. It's just not a practical solution, nor is it a necessary one. Like, this is just a situation similar to like the anti-vax thing a few years ago, where a bunch of people who are not medical professionals, have no training in medicine or biology or biomed or anything like that, are just deciding that they know what a thing is and then arguing with that straw man. Similarly to what you're talking about here when you say late-term abortions, as if it's just a thing that people do.
No, first of all, I want to stop you right there because you keep saying that like nobody do that. First of all, where I live, I live in the hood. These people get abortions. They kill babies for a fact by choice. I don't want it. Stuff like that. You saying it don't happen is just 100% unbelievable.
We have not said it doesn't happen.
I hear these girls.
We have not said it doesn't happen. No, we said it happens significantly less than you say and for different reasons than you think. And at the end of the day, no matter what, if you restrict it, you make things worse.
Because it happened less. No, not in my opinion. Not in my opinion.
It doesn't matter your opinion. There's empirical data about this, Jay. There's empirical data about this. It doesn't matter what your opinion is. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, the data shows that when abortion is banned, more people die. It doesn't matter what your opinion is. The data shows
y'all not talking about the same thing I'm talking about. Y'all talking about every single type of thing that can be encompassed. No, y'all talking about every single type of thing that can possibly be encompassed in the word abortion, like whatever he said about topic and shit like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about
what specifically are you talking about, Jay?
I'm specifically talking about somebody having the right to choose to kill a baby. That was going to make it.
Nobody.
That makes sense.
Jay, there is nowhere in the entire United States where it is legal to kill a baby. Period. And it never has been. No one kills babies.
What are you talking about? Somebody can go. You can definitely go get rid of your pregnancy, terminate your pregnancy because you don't want a baby. You can't convince me.
That's a different thing. That's a different thing. So if we're talking about a late-term abortion, when you're talking about a late-term abortion, someone who's terminating their pregnancy very, very late in the pregnancy, like weeks away.
That's why I said I might not have used the right word when I said late-term, because I'm talking about.
You're not using the right word.
When do you think
you're not using the right word when you keep referring to it as Jay? I'm gonna have to mute you again if you keep talking over me. No, I'm not gonna let you ask me anything. I'm gonna finish my fucking sentence, dude. So
all right, finish
when you're talking about not using the right word, the word you're misusing is the word baby. That's what we're talking about. That's the issue. When you're talking about late term abortion, people who are terminating their pregnancy within weeks of when they would have delivered, as Austin mentioned earlier, those are extremely rare. Nope, I'm going to have to mute you again because you keep fucking interrupting. Get your emotions in check and fucking listen. We're talking about very rare and very serious situations where you have to take really harsh medical interventions here that are not pleasant for absolutely fucking anybody in order to save the life of that pregnant person. These are people who intended to have a child, people who have been excited about having a child, people who have been prepared to have a child, people who have probably already bought cribs and toys and shit, who then get the worst fucking news they can imagine, that their life is on the line and that they're going to have to make an impossible choice with their doctor. That's what we are actually talking about. We're talking about, for example, people who are very pregnant and then discover they have some sort of terminal cancer. And if they're gonna live, they need to not be pregnant anymore so that they can seek chemotherapy, radiation therapy, surgery, whatever it may be. Pregnancy and those things are not compatible at the same time. It's just not going to happen. We're talking about situations like that, where this person was intending to have this kid and then could not. Not that they didn't want to, not that they were 9 months along and was like, you know what would be fucking fun? A cruise. I'm just going to get rid of this pregnancy. That shit doesn't happen. And if it does happen, it is a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the cases. And the fucking shitty reality, Jay, is that you have to allow all of it. Otherwise, the vast majority of the cases where they really are necessary and important and would save somebody's life are also being outlawed. There's no way for you to have an ethical checklist to go down to decide on when somebody gets to have an abortion. There's no way to have a fucking legislated morality to say these people can have abortions at this point and these people can't. That isn't how it works, ever. People should have the right to decide what happens with their bodies. I have a totally different line of questioning for you, dude, and I don't even think we're going to be able to get there. Austin, do you have anything else? I'm going to bring Jay back on for probably the last time.
I was going to ask Jay, do you believe in exceptions for things like that? When the doctors say, hey, we can't actually carry this pregnancy to term and save your life, the baby's going to die anyway, the baby will be born dead, so we have to terminate the pregnancy to save your life. Do you believe in exceptions for things like that? Do you believe in exceptions for things like sexual assault, stuff like that? Do you believe in exceptions where abortion should be legal? That's my question for you, Jay.
Yeah, I believe in certain exceptions.
Which exceptions do you believe in?
Like if they can't carry the baby, like without dying, and they can make a choice between like letting go of the baby, like shit, they're gonna die. How they gonna make the choice if both of them and the baby die? So somebody got to make a choice. So like,
Jay,
when the baby dying,
Jay, can you?
If somebody got sexually assaulted.
So, Jay, you're not alone. Most people who oppose abortion or think of abortion as murder agree that there should be reasonable exceptions, just like the ones you talked about. Agree that, like, hey, if someone's going to die and we got to intervene to save a life, or if there's sexual assault or things like that, most people agree in those exceptions. The problem here is, Jay, how do you write legislation in a way where doctors... Hold on. I'm asking you a question, and I want you to listen to the question. How do you write the legislation in a way where the doctors can clearly understand when an exception is in play? Because doctors and medical professionals will often look at a situation with a pregnant person where they go, if you carry this pregnancy to term, I give you maybe a 60% chance of survival. And it's like, at what point is the tipping point where the doctor can say, I have now gotten enough information to intervene to save this person's life? Why does that person not have a say in that process where they go, oh, geez, like there's a 50-50 chance I might die here? When do you believe that how do medical professionals and pregnant people and families determine when the exception has been met? Also with like sexual assault and stuff like that, with things where there might not be any hard evidence that a pregnancy is the result of sexual assault, but the person who's pregnant knows that it was, but it's really difficult to prove that consent was not given or something like that. How do you deal with that? How do you write legislation in a way that makes those exceptions possible? Because doctors right now in states that have those exceptions are afraid to administer life-saving care, because if they get it wrong, they could be tried with murder. They could be brought up on murder charges for doing their job. Mm-hmm. And so it makes the job of medical professionals really, really difficult when you say. So how would you structure that in a way that makes sense?
See,
I want you to
that's
just.
the thing, and
I want you to just.
So
I want
some
you
of
to
the
think
examples
about
that you gave.
Yeah. It wasn't that many.
No,
it was,
like the
it was,
example that you gave, right? It's like, yeah. So like somebody getting sexually assaulted and having to carry a pregnancy is not life saving. It's not life saving. They can still have that baby unless they can't have that baby. Is like one of the exceptions.
So just to be clear,
I might be wrong for that, but I think you should be able to carry the baby.
I think there's a pretty moral argument that could be made that says forcing people to carry the babies of their rapists to term is not moral or ethical. I think that you could make that argument pretty strongly. And I think that you said I might be wrong for that. I would make the argument that you are wrong for that. I would just say, Jay, we got to move on to probably another caller.
To be honest, I don't think I am.
Yeah, I think you are, though, Jay.
We're not surprised.
And I want you to sit with the question that I asked you of, okay, if there should be exceptions to save people's lives, how do you write that legislation? Because just outright banning it doesn't do it. And trying to ban it with legislation that says
lives. if they're about to die, if they can't carry the pregnancy, they can't carry the pregnancy.
And just to be clear, Trump, and just to be clear, because the reason you called is that you're voting for Trump for this reason, that is not an exception that Trump is willing to make. That it is very, very clear in his actual legislative policies and ideas.
Because I believe. Yeah, I know, but I believe it's easier to change it that way, like that, where you can,
you believe it's easier.
Go out there and
just
protest.
To be clear,
time for y'all to go out and protest.
You think it's easier to convince?
Do all that shit that y'all do, so y'all can get something in there and be like.
I'm just gonna mute him again, and then we're gonna end the call. Jay, you're muted one more time, and then this is the last thing because you clearly are not here to have a conversation. Trump has actually said that he's taking credit for killing Roe v. Wade. He says that abortion is not actually as big of an issue as people are pretending. And he and his cabinet and his Project 2025 and all these things actually are trying to get a complete and total 100% ban. So you're trying to tell me, right, you're trying to tell me that it would be easier to reverse certain parts of a total ban than it would be to correct for tiny little exceptions in a law that just allows people to be free in their choices. Bullshit. Jay's already hung up and no one's surprised. It's just, Jay, it is very clearly, if you're still listening to this, which I doubt you are, it's very clear that you have a rhetoric in your head that you're already sold on, and you don't give a fuck how many people die because of that rhetoric. You've already decided what you like and what you want to believe. And it doesn't matter how many actually trained medical professionals are against it. You think you know better about this medical care. I was going to ask how he would be cool with me leeching off of him. He even used the word leeching, in terms of babies and things like that. If he and I have the same blood type and I'm going into kidney failure, can I go plug a needle into Jay and start using his blood? If he pulls that needle out, that would result in my death. Does that mean he's killing me? Or does that mean he's preserving his own rights and his own freedom and his own dignity? It's just a complete fucking straw man that Jay's bought into. I'm not at all surprised it didn't go his way.
We've got my favorite part of the conversation is just when he said, well, that's just my opinion. And it's like, well, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter what your opinion is. Who cares?
People are dying. Yeah, but I don't feel like that's true. Okay.
Okay. Empirical data suggests otherwise, and all medical professionals disagree with you. Well, my opinion is that they don't. Well, so what?
Right? Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry, dude. We've got 3 people left on the line. We're going to start with Adam. pronouns she or him. Got a little bit of both. Calling in from Nimble Gestures. Nimble Gestures. Bouncing around, getting up on a high wire, dancing. Cool stuff. Adam is voting third party and wants to explain why. We've covered it, but we're going to cover it some more until we're blue in the face and the election is over. Adam, you're on the line with Forrest and Austin. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
All right, cool. I just wanted like maybe about 2 minutes because I have like some chicken scratch on a piece of paper, and I want maybe like about just 2 minutes to say.
You're coming in real crackly. Am I on like a headphone or something?
No, I'm on my phone.
You're calling in just from regular. Yeah, it's next to impossible to hear you. You've been waiting for a long time. I want to give you the time that you need. Like, it's real scraggly.
All right, you want to just let someone else, and I'll hold on and be the next one. I'll switch to a different location.
Yeah,
I don't know what you just said.
He said, "Do you want to move on to somebody else, and I'll try to switch locations and see if I can fix my reception." Because I'd like to hear your argument. We can't understand what you're saying, fortunately.
Yeah, Adam, I'm going to put you back in the queue. I'm not going to hang up on you, so hang tight. I'm just going to put you back in the queue, and we'll try again here in just a minute. Okay?
All right, cool.
Bye. Talk to you soon, Lee. Instead, we're going to go to William, pronouns they, them, who wants to call in from ambulatory rodents. Talk about mice and stuff, walking around, being cool. Let's talk about if there is an extreme form of socialism without it becoming totalitarian. I have great news for you about socialism and totalitarianism. They're different. William, you were on the line with Forrest and Austin. How you doing?
Hi, how are y'all?
Great.
Good night. Everyone's just reasonable callers, all that good stuff.
Yeah. All good. Yeah, all good.
All right.
What specifically is your question?
All right. So me and my roommate, we were discussing like extreme like viewpoints. And she made the comment that she thinks that there's an extreme viewpoint to all forms of political sides, and I was like, I can't actually genuinely think of the extreme viewpoint for like socialism without it like just becoming something else by action, if that makes sense. But I was like, but that also does sound like the no true Scotsman fallacy. So I'm trying to make sure. I was trying to like think, am I engaging in that and kind of realizing it? Because like on its face, it sounds like it, but also, I don't know.
Right. So there's a couple of things. First of all, can you back up from your mic a little bit? Because it's coming in real cracklesome. It's like stabbing people in the ears.
Is this better?
Way better. If you're using a headset or something, or if we're on speaker, stop that shit. But if not, then just keep away from the mic a little bit.
I was on headset. I am on headset. I'm just trying to keep it away from my mouth.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's awful. But in terms of like that, it's important to remember that socialism is a primarily economic and also somewhat social policy idea. And just like capitalism, it is a broad and diverse thing. There's a lot of history involved. It depends on if you're using the term socialism in the historical context or in the purely theoretical context or in the whatever. There's a lot there. And there's a tremendous amount of individual little sub ideas that fall under like the whole like blanket of like Marxist theories and whatnot. There's a reason why there's a difference between Marxism and Leninism and Marxism-Leninism, you know what I mean? And shit like that. And communism isn't any of those things. When we talk about a no true Scotsman fallacy for that reason, it's important to remember that like the capitalism that we talk about in America and the capitalism that we talk about in Japan, we're talking about a lot of the same things, but also very different beasts. You know what I'm talking about? So it's just not exactly the same. And so it's the same thing with socialism. There have been people who call themselves socialists who have been totalitarian. However, fascism in itself is a far right ideology, and socialism is a very much left leaning ideology. And so to try to conflate the two is to betray one or the other. And most of the time, when we talk about people who talk about socialism being totalitarian, they're referencing people who call themselves socialists or call themselves communists while being objectively and demonstrably not that.
Yeah, just insert a lot of dictators here, to be fair.
yeah, exactly. And so, like, for real, it's just like, if you want to talk about extreme socialism, if you're talking in pure like theory terms, extreme socialism is communism. Because at a certain point you would lose the need for money in classes and state. And that's the definition of communism, is a moneyless, classless, stateless society. But again, that's only theoretical.
Say that's a bad thing either.
Right. No, as an anarchist, I'm into it. But like also that's still purely just theory based. If you talk about like the more historical concept, the difference is that socialism is evolutionary and communism is revolutionary. Socialists seek to get voted into power and change the government to benefit the people through legislative change. Communists seek to overthrow the government through force. That's why a lot of that time we use words like tankies to talk about people who are like violent communists, which at the end of the day is an authoritarian idea. And then you have this issue over here. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a Marxist. And so like, yeah, it's just there's a lot there, and quite frankly, I'm not a political theorist. But I can tell you, like in terms of like extreme socialism becoming a totalitarian, I don't think that's anything you have to worry about, especially not in this country. But that's just me. Austin, do you have anything to build off of that?
Yeah, certainly not anytime in the next few years. You know, it's an interesting philosophical exercise. To sit down and try to parse out what the end game of any one political ideology might be, and try to figure out the ways that they can go wrong and the ways that they can be abused and the ways that they can be shifted. I'm not necessarily sure if it is the most pertinent thing to our conversation here on the show today, but I appreciate the thought and the call.
Mm-hmm. You've been waiting for a long time. I want to make sure to talk about it a little bit.
I appreciate that. That's really it. I don't know. I'll bug y'all later.
All right, thanks so much, William. Take care.
Yep.
Thanks for listening. Yep. Bye. To the person in the chat who says, yeah, it was bad, but William seemed like a nice person. To the person in the chat who says, I predict that Forrest will not be a communist in 20 years. I'm not a communist now. So, probably. I bet you'll be right. I like the framework of I distinguish, and I'm not going to talk about this very long because it's fucking boring, but I distinguish. I talk about I'm a socialist and an anarchist, which at face value you would then call communism in like the base theory, but that's not what it means to most people, so I don't use the term. You know what I mean? Like it's just socialism and anarchism. Social anarchism is a thing, and it's great, and you should try it out. We're gonna go back to Adam. We're gonna try Adam again. And see if we can get a better connection. Adam, you are on the line with Forrest and Austin again. Can you hear us? Adam going once. Adam going twice.
It might be a web caller thing.
Come on, Adam.
Adam, pull your phone away and tap it. Wake it up.
Yeah, if your phone has gone asleep, then it will not let you talk to us.
Maybe Adam's taking a shit or something.
Adam, quit dumping and get on the phone to talk about the third party.
Mm-hmm.
Adam, you've been waiting for 48 minutes. I don't want to drop you at this point. Adam, come on. Adam going once. Adam going twice. I'm sorry, we got to move on. It's almost a minute now of dead air. We're gonna move on. I'm sorry, Adam. Try again next time. We're doing plenty more shows. Bye.
If you guys want, I'm happy to open up another line if somebody's in the audience wanting to call, because it's quarter of. I thought the calls on the line were going to take us over 8 p.m. But now we've only got one call left. So
we still have super chats as well. I'll leave it up to you, Austin. You're our guest. So you decide whether the show is really cool or boring as fuck. You decide.
I think. What's the last caller want to talk about?
The last caller is also voting for third party, and they're a repeat caller that we've had long discussions with. And quite frankly, it's going to be a short conversation. I bet you.
Okay, I'd be interested as if it's all right. I'll even take it. I'll take it, and if it's not going anywhere, I'll go. Okay, let's go to super chats.
Okay, yeah. No,
okay.
I will give you this person, and then we'll see what happens. We're gonna go to Max, pronouns he him, calling in from Itchy Legs. Max wants to talk about why he's voting for third party. Let's see why. Max, you're on the line with Forrest Valkai. How you doing?
Hey guys, salam alaikum. And I'm voting for
the amount of people in the chat who I said this person's called in a lot and it's been really like not productive, and several people in the chat were like, is it Max?
What's up, Max?
Well, I'm sorry they feel that way. Hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm voting for third party because it will bring, if a third party gets up to 5% of the popular votes across the country, actually, then they get federal public funding for the elections. And then
super cool. Election. And what happens in the meantime, Max?
What do you mean?
Well, also, Max. Well, first of all, Forrest's question is, okay, you get federal funding, and what and how in the meantime, and in the time while you're waiting to build up this party and make it viable and stuff, and make them actually competitive in elections, how is that serving any of the causes that you care about in the meantime? That's a question. The other thing is, this 5% thing is a total myth that you've been sold. It's just a lie. Third parties have historically in American elections done better than 5%, and they have the duopoly, the establishment powers of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party remain unchallenged and untoppled. It's going to take a lot more than 5% to actually do what you're hoping to do.
Well, it starts out small, but every movement starts. Ocean.
Right, Max. What I'm telling you is what I'm telling you is third parties already have gotten 5% in former elections, and it hasn't done what you're claiming it will do. So,
I mean,
what does that mean?
Meaning like 1990s elections, then it's a different era. Nowadays,
would it matter?
It's all digital. What? It would matter because it gives them more resources to get their ideas out.
And also, I want to be very clear. Yeah, my question remains: what happens in the meantime? Third party gets a bunch of federal funding. Let's say it's true. They get the federal funding and all that stuff. And then what happens in 4 years while we're waiting for the chance to vote for them again, when they just have some federal funding and they may or may not still be on the ballot in every state, and people still aren't going to want to vote for them. People are still generally going to want vote for the two-party system. And in that 4 years, because a bunch of people voted for third party this time, we have Donald Trump as president. What happens in that time?
Well, first of all, I think in this election, a lot of people are sick and tired of this duopoly that we have in American politics. So
myself among them, yes.
Yeah, and lots of people calling for Jill Stein, for other candidates, and it's showing people that there's opportunity for choice, and especially, as I said, I called earlier in my previous.
So that doesn't answer my question. That doesn't answer my question. My question was, you vote for third party, and then Trump wins because there's no viable way for any third party candidate to win in this election. So Trump is going to win. And then what happens in that time?
Well, Trump is not going to win because, if you're voting for a third party in a solid blue state, solid red state, your vote essentially doesn't really make a difference.
No.
That's not true.
Always
not accurate.
Yeah, that's not true. And also, as I said a little while ago, maybe you weren't hearing it, I don't know, is that everybody who is going to vote for Trump is going to vote for Trump. The only people that are going to be persuaded to vote for third party are people who are already going to vote for third party anyway, so it doesn't matter, or Democrats, people who are going to vote for Harris. So a bunch of leftists and liberals are going to decide to not vote for Harris anymore, which is going to reduce Harris's numbers, squashing her chance of winning, which means Trump is going to win. The actual reality of this next election, which is coming up in just a couple of days, is that either Harris or Trump are going to win. Voting for a third party is only going to happen from people who would have otherwise voted for Harris, which means Trump is going to win. And then, again, the question, what happens in those 4 years?
As you said before, it's a choice everyone has to make way for themselves if they think in their state they don't want to risk it, so they would want to, begrudgingly vote for Harris. Or if they're in a solid state, like Illinois, like California, some New England states, that, they can really, take the opportunity to vote for a third party and get that vote to count for future developments.
And I'm going to ask again. I'm sorry, I'm going to ask again. Yeah. Say it works, and we get all the votes for the third party, and the third party candidate gets funding, blah, blah, blah. What happens in the meantime before the third party candidate gets to run again? What's going on in that time?
I just told you, California is not flipping red. Illinois is not flipping red.
I didn't say they were. This is the thing, Max. This is Max, why I was so hesitant to take the call. Yeah. Max, I get it. I'm saying after you vote third party and they get some funding, blah, 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 great. States don't flip. Nobody cares. Trump's going to win the election if that happens. And then you can later on vote again for third party and they get some money. So what happens in that time, in that 4 years while Trump is president? What's going on?
No, how do you have to prove that Trump would win the election if people in California
we already did.
Already
did that.
I already did. Already did that.
Already did that, Max. So now you have to answer the question. You can't just keep deflecting. So he already answered.
You did not prove it.
Yes, he did.
California's not going red. So millions of people
who cares?
Who want to vote third party there can vote
so first
for
of all, Matt,
third party safely.
No one's going to vote third party if they're a Republican voter. It's not going to happen.
Right. Nobody who's voting for Donald Trump is going to vote for third party. There's no reason why they would. There's absolutely no reason why they would. So the only people voting third party are people who are going to vote third party no matter what, people who always vote green and always vote third party, or people who otherwise would have voted for Harris, which means it takes votes away from the Harris campaign and it helps the Trump campaign. That's what that means. That's how that math works. We've already explained that. Now, the question that was posed to you is, let's say that your plan works, the third party gets its 5%, and the 5% results in federal funding, and now the third party has a more competitive shot in the next election. Forrest's question was, how do these next 4 years under a Trump presidency, because of your vote, because your vote causes a Trump presidency to happen, how do those play out? What happens in those 4 years? And how does that help you achieve your goals?
That's a false and speculative question. There's no reason why California would, or any of these solid states, would have so much people voting for third party that Democrats lose. That's just not going to happen. So,
can I ask you something, Max? Let's get away from that. Yeah, so I don't think we're going to get you, but it's still, let's hypothetically just say, it still bears to play out the strategy that you're engaging with. That's the point of Forrest's question, is just to say, let's say you get all the things you want out of being a third party voter. What are the results of that? And you're saying, I don't want to speculate, but we do want to speculate. We want to say, what is the goal that you're after? What are you hoping to achieve? What do you think the result will be?
Also, literally the reason you're voting third party is speculation. Just want to throw that out there. That if you do this, then eventually maybe we'll get this thing, and then maybe something will happen, and maybe we'll get another candidate that's worth a damn. Like that. All of that is what that is, dude. Whatever. Answer Austin's question.
Okay, so we're both engaged in speculation. Glad you admit that. But Austin, I will answer to your question. Is that these new parties which attract the people's vote with their, more popular ideas, whether it's, Jill Stein's stance on Israel or its libertarian stance on government police brutality or gun rights, this will force the big parties to start catering to these third-party voters in order to try to get their vote. No progressive is going to be suddenly voting for Trump because Harris said, oh, we're going to stop with these gun control infringements. We're going to stop trying to ban AR-15s. No progressives are going to be like, let me vote for Trump in that case, right?
Yeah, sure.
What we said a minute
ago. So
just throwing that out there too. So it's whatever.
So
doesn't
in this
matter.
case, these policies that the people want to be implemented will have to be implemented because the the big parties would want the vote, right?
No. Because for the exact same reason why a third party candidate has never in the modern American history had a real chance of winning an election, no matter how much they paid lip service to people on the fringes. The exact same reason, it's just not going to happen. Also, Austin mentioned earlier that other candidates have already gotten more than 5% of the vote, and still we have two parties that are pushing further and further to the right. They don't care. They're doing what they want anyway. There are better ways to go about doing that. It's just not reasonable. And in the meantime, we get a Trump presidency. Also, I never admitted to speculating. It's so weird the way that you talk about the hosts, as if you can fucking get one up on us by admitting that we're both playing bullshit games. It's ridiculous. I'm talking about reality here. One of the two candidates is going to win. If you don't vote for one of them, the other one's going to win. Trump has a solid base that is voting for him with their whole heart. Harris has a fragmented base full of some people that are voting third party. That the math there says that Trump is now on top of that situation. And it doesn't even matter anyway, because the question was how does 4 years of Trump work? What happens in that time? How does that benefit you? The answer to that question, if you had been honest enough to try, was that it fucking doesn't. It works strongly against you. Because I guarantee whatever success you might have in a third-party candidacy is going to be squashed and reduced by a Trump presidency with his consolidation of power. We're that close to a one-party system with him. It's absurd that this is something you refuse to grapple with.
I think the problem that we see with voters like Max and with third-party voters is they have a really hard time understanding their own influence and their own size and their own relevance in the American political landscape, because on one hand, they're often told that they're very insignificant, that they actually represent this really small portion of the voting block, and that's why people, they're often overlooked in election cycles. But on the other hand, they're told, you are the ones who are flipping elections. You are the one. And so they're like, how can we be both? And it's well, because that's how the Electoral College works, is even though you are a very, very small, statistically small portion of the voting block, you are significant enough in key battleground states often to dilute the voting populace of one party over the other to swing those states and result in an electoral victory. And often this can be just a few thousand votes in key states. This can come down to a margin of 10,000 votes in Michigan, or 50,000 votes in Pennsylvania. And those are really, really small margins. So you can simultaneously be a statistically small amount of people who don't actually have real institutional and systemic power at the political level, but also you can be really instrumental in fucking up elections for millions of people and screwing up policy for millions of people. And because both of those things are true, third-party voters have a really hard time understanding what their influence and what their relevancy in the political landscape actually is. And it's so interesting when people like Max say well, why don't they just go with this? If they would just do things our way, they would win in a landslide. And why aren't they trying to earn our votes? And we have the popular policies and the popular ideas. And it's so interesting because it's you're mad at the Democratic Party for not doing a good enough job earning your vote. And there's a couple million of you, when the third party has failed to earn the votes of the 80 million people who are going to vote for the Democrats. And it's if your party's so good at this, if your platform is so strong, if your policies are so rock solid, and if your candidates are so such obvious choices, then how come they're not doing a better job at earning the votes of the tens of millions of people who consistently vote for the two-party system? You can't simultaneously say the Democrats aren't doing a good enough job earning our votes and also be subscribing to a third-party vote where the third party can never even decide who its candidate is, whether it's Cornel West or Claudia or Jill Stein. They can never figure out who it is. And second of all, you're terrible at earning votes. You're absolutely terrible at getting people to side with you. How come you can't get more than 5 million people to want to vote the way, you can't pull anywhere close to the numbers that Kamala Harris is pulling. So maybe she's not getting your vote, but she's getting tens of millions of votes. She's got so many more votes than the people that you're voting for. I do want to ask you one more question, though, Max. I want to get away from this conversation of speculating about what the results of your vote might be. And I just want to ask you, why do you personally believe, what leads you to believe that ethically, morally, what is your cause that makes you believe in voting third party?
First of all, what you just said before is a complete straw man, and that is completely not the...
Do you know what a straw man is?
Because, like, I previously told you that this third-party system and this stance specifically on Palestine, on gun rights, etc., it would cause the big parties to start to cater to these third-party views more. And you agreed with me.
That's called speculation, Max.
Which is also what you guys are doing by saying that California or Illinois will flip red, right? So
we didn't say that.
If you believe that, that's not what we said. And also, if you believe that and you're chastising us for doing it, maybe don't fucking do it. Like that's not what we're doing. But also, if you have such a problem with it, don't do the thing. Maybe, I don't know, man. Just I would ask you to be consistent, but I've talked to you a few times, and I know that's not what's going to happen.
Max, I just wanted.
What were you going to ask me, Austin?
I was just going to ask you just if you could explain what, and it sounds like I think I already heard it from you, but just to be that I'm clear, your main issue is the Democratic Party's stance on Israel and looking for a political party that has a more a stance that is more in line with your values, and Palestine and gun rights and policing and things like that. Is that correct?
Not on Israel. I don't really care about Palestinians, but I just use it as an example. But
and there it is.
My personal stance just aligns with libertarians.
Damn, that's the most honest thing I've heard from a third-party voter in a while.
I think like this is why I was so hesitant to take the call, because this is what we get from Max. It's just heartless.
Yeah, you said Assalamu alaikum, and I thought for sure that you were like in solidarity with Arab.
Maybe
people.
This guy has some sort of a conscience, right? No.
Yeah, no, not at all. Wow.
Dude doesn't give a shit.
I should no tears for people who brought it on themselves. They shouldn't have attacked Israel. They fucked around.
50%, just out of curiosity, 50% of the population of Gaza are children. And right now, over 16,000 of the dead are children. Did they bring it on themselves, Max? Those kids?
Oh, boy, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's very dark. No, oh, my goodness.
It's all you can do with somebody like this.
Whoa. But also, like, that's
tease a bulldog and it attacks you. You know, it's kind of your fault, right? They shouldn't have done October 7th if they didn't want.
The children? Yeah. That's what I was asking about. I was asking about the 16,000 dead children in Palestine. Those children shouldn't have attacked Israel? Is that what you're saying?
Hamas shouldn't have attacked Israel.
Oh, are Hamas the children? It's weird because, you know, when we talk about this stuff, everyone tries to point the fingers at Hamas, which I've also condemned and been very angry about Hamas. I don't like terrorists myself. That's why I also don't like the fact that Israel has killed over 40,000 people, the vast majority of which being women and children, 16,000 kids. That's why I don't like the fact that they've bombed like every fucking hospital, putting almost all of them completely out of commission. That's why I don't like running people over with bulldozers. That's why I don't like bombing refugee camps. That's why I don't like using white phosphorus, because I don't like terrorism, you see. I have the same reason why I don't think that it's appropriate to plant explosives in pagers and blow them up in civilian areas, you know what I mean? But then again, I care about human beings, whether they be Palestinian, Israeli, or otherwise, because I'm a decent fucking person. What about you, Max?
Man, I was so ready to give Max the benefit. I was like giving you all the benefit of the doubt. I was like, I was like, hey, tell me why you care about third-party voters. I was thinking he was going to be like, well, you know, I care about Palestinian dignity and life. And then I was going to try to make an argument about how voting for Harris is actually a better vote for the safety of Palestinian people. But it turns out Max doesn't give a shit at all. Like, Max this is here. Wow.
This is why I've been a little bit like you can see I'm been a little bit grumpy with this call, because I'm just like whatever, because this is the kind of shit that we get out of Max.
I'm cool with moving on to
before we drop him. Can I hop in? I want to ask Max a question, because this was actually brought to my attention. Max, you've mentioned "in my country" several times on previous calls. Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, of course. That's why
Okay.
I'm going to vote this Tuesday.
No, just making sure you weren't like some non-citizen calling in to fuck around with our audience repeatedly, because then I would have to ban you. But no, okay, you're fine. You're just annoying. That's all.
All right, cool. What do you care about? Just out of curiosity, what do you care about? Since you don't care about Palestinian life or about human dignity or anything like that, why do you want to vote third party? What do you care about?
I care about American citizens. That's why, Libertarian Party, Chase Oliver, he's been protesting this police brutality, qualified immunity, this overgrown security state apparatus, NSA spying. It doesn't benefit us in any way.
I mean, those are things that I can agree with if libertarians were serious. Like that I agree wholeheartedly with those things. Unfortunately, it tends to just be Republicans who also want to smoke weed. And that's kind of what we're seeing with this call. Exactly. It's like, you don't have a universal human value. You just like, this in my country where I live is a little bit obnoxious, and so I want to fix it. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of people can fuck all the way off because they were born in a place where some terrorists are, and that means they should all die. And it's like, dude, I don't know how you take yourself seriously, because you're not getting any of it from me, I assure you.
I wasn't prepared. I was like, let's bring Max in, and whoa, it's a bad
time.
Max. One thing that I do see with Max, and I see with a lot of third-party voters and protest voters, is like they love a good slogan. They love something that sounds kind of really defensible. Like, people who aren't Max would say like, well, killing kids is my hard line or something like that. And it sounds like a really good slogan, but it's like, but your strategy isn't actually doing anything to protect more kids. So the slogan winds up meaning nothing. And it's the same way that Max is doing here with like slogans about, police brutality and about like, government overreach. And it's like, that's cool. Those are interesting slogans. But if your political strategy isn't actually doing anything meaningful to address those issues in any pragmatic way, if you're just paving the way for a Trump presidency, then the slogan doesn't mean anything. It's empty, and there's no meat to it.
I feel like that's a really important point, both in America and also in Palestine, because here in America, we have Trump who says that the police are persecuted and need to be let free to do whatever they want a lot more. So like allowing for a Trump presidency goes strongly against these ideas of police brutality and trying to stop the qualified immunity and all the shit that a Trump presidency would continue to guarantee and possibly like enshrine even further. Meanwhile, also with the other half of your face, you're going to say that, the people in Palestine, I don't give a fuck about them. I don't care about the fact that Israeli snipers shoot kids and blast kneecaps of protesters. I don't care about the fact that there's thousands of Palestinians in administrative detention, quote, with no charge, no crime, no trial, nothing. They're just held in detention where they are tortured and raped, and there are protests going on in Israel for the right to rape Palestinian prisoners. You don't give a fuck about that police brutality. You don't give a fuck about it whenever the Israeli ministers come out and say that no Palestinians are innocent and that we will completely reduce them to rubble, and that even the entire population is guilty. You don't care about collective punishment in that way. You don't care about the way that we completely racially profile an entire population of millions of people. Don't give a fuck about any of that. But here in America, here in the land of the free, then we can talk about police brutality and allow a fascist to take power because you care so much about individual freedom. What I said, Max, my days of not taking you seriously are coming up to maybe a middle. I don't know. Maybe someday you'll convince me that you actually give a shit about anybody but yourself. But today is not that day, Max.
Those people shouldn't have fucked around. They're finding out. Those little kids. Look, they fucked around, and this is America, all right? I care about American citizens, all right? That's what I care about.
Yeah. Racism and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, Max, we're going to move on because it's just as boring as it always is. Don't call me sometime. Call one of the other hosts, or maybe don't. Bye. I've talked to Max for hours. I'm sick of Max. I'm sorry. It's one of those, we never get anywhere.
That was wild. What's up with super chats?
Let's do super chats. Hell yeah. Oh man. We've got, let me put the producer chat over there and put my stupid face over here so I can see Do you want to trade off reading these? Or I'll take them. What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's trade off. I'll go first. Here we go. $20 from John Christopher. Why have Democrats not picked up the idea of no tax on overtime? Has a blue collar, I think you mean as a blue collar worker who goes between easily 50 to 60 hours and has done weeks that are over 80, no tax on overtime would be a tremendous help. I could say that there might be a point to be made there. Maybe Forrest has a different argument than me. I think that that could be an interesting idea. That's the thing about the Harris administration is Harris is much more willing to take the best ideas from all around than you're ever going to see with Donald Trump. But overall, most serious economists in the world agree that Harris's economic proposals and policy are going to be drastically better than Donald Trump's were. In fact, are going to be. Donald Trump's economic policies that are proposed are going to be disastrous. Like the projections of the things that he wants to do are going to be disastrous. If you're going to vote on like this one thing, again, if you're going to be like a slogan voter, like, ooh, I like this idea. No tax on overtime. That sounds like it's something that's good for me, but completely ignoring what the overwhelming majority of economists are saying about like how disastrous his tariff policy will be and how his tax code only provides tax cuts for the top earners of tax brackets. And it's the exact inverse of what Harris's tax code wants to do, which is give you a tax cut and increase the taxes of people making over $400,000 a year, increase taxes on the highest earning tax brackets. So like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of maybe sixes there, but like you're going to save more money under a Harris administration than you will under a Trump administration. Although, boy, it would be cool to get the tax cut and the no taxes on overtime. I'd take both.
I would absolutely also take both. That's the thing. I think the answer to why Democrats have not picked up this idea is because it isn't absolutely necessary for them to win a race yet. And that really is like I'm no friend of the Democratic Party. Like I'm very happy to criticize them at any time. The fact of the matter is, it's a lot like when I criticize like the progress of science. Science tends to progress in capitalism whenever we're all about to die or there's like a war that we have to win with this technology or something like that. And it's the same thing here. As soon as Democrats aren't going to win the next race because they haven't promised this thing, then they'll do it. But and then it probably still won't happen until another couple of Democratic presidents. The same thing with like student loan forgiveness, serious action on climate change. Pick your favorite. Like these are things like absolutely, we're going to do our best to enshrine protections for abortion in the Constitution. We're going to make it happen. We're going to really fucking do. We're going to codify Roe. We're going to make the thing happen. No, you're not. You said it so you can win the race, and then you're gonna fuck around until eventually we're like, we're not voting for you until you fucking do this, and then it'll happen. Same thing with that. Same thing with everything. They've been running on climate change for who knows how long. We had the Paris Climate Agreement. That was pretty cool. Not fucking good enough, but better. And now,
and then who pulled us out of the Paris Climate Agreement?
Goddamn Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And still here we are just trying to fucking flounder with somebody who maybe believes in science long enough to not fucking doom us all. 10 fake dollars from Sale. Love this duo, heart. By the way, I'm not voting or voting with enough information. About not voting or voting without enough information. Just remember Brexit and the people that still pays the high price for that scam. I think it was the... there's this vote to leave the European Union. On the day, I think it was either of that vote or right after that vote, the most Googled thing was, what is the European Union? Like, what are we doing in this in the first place? They all voted to get out, and then we're like, what was that thing that we just got rid of?
It's kind of like Jay voting on abortion and not knowing what abortion is. Like just being like, I don't know. I just know what the propaganda that I take in says about abortion, but I don't actually have like a medically qualified opinion about what abortion actually is. But that is what I'm voting on. And it's that exact same thing. And often, to Sale's point, the people who suffer most from the consequences of protest voters or people who, uninformed voters, uneducated voters is the most marginalized communities. We have 5, it looks like euros from Sale again, who says, I live in the EU and I'm scared shitless about this election. It's not just America at stake. The whole world is at stake. Vote. That is the thing is, boy, when America has presidential elections, the eyes of the world are on us, and not just the eyes of the world, but the eyes of history indeed. And the world is terrified of a second Donald Trump presidency. The international community, the people that we should be listening to and taking seriously, overwhelmingly would prefer a Harris presidency to a Trump presidency. I can't tell you how many third party or protest voters tell me, well, I have a Palestinian friend who told me not to do this. And I always say, especially if my friend is white who's saying this to me, I say, let your Palestinian friend do whatever they want to do. You don't dictate to them how they should feel or how they should react. But you should know as a white ally and as a white voter that overwhelmingly Palestinians prefer a Harris administration to a Trump administration. And Benjamin Netanyahu would much rather have a Trump presidency than a Harris presidency. And that tells you everything you need to know about that situation. Now, I don't think white people should be telling Palestinian people how to respond to this situation on an emotional level at all. And so if you have a Palestinian friend that tells you, hey, I'm voting this way because of what's being done to my family in Gaza, I think you should leave that person the fuck alone. But as a white person, if you actually want to know how the majority of Palestinians feel, how the majority of your queer friends feel, how the majority of your friends who are people of color feel, how the majority of people in marginalized communities that are more marginalized than you feel, the consensus is overwhelmingly that Harris is preferred over Trump.
Yeah, I would parrot every bit of that. Like I've said multiple times, like I think that if you're a person of color, especially if you're indigenous, especially if you are Palestinian or Lebanese, and you're like watching this and you are seeing the horror stories that your parents and grandparents told you about your history played out again in real time, I cannot judge you for making, I don't want to use the word emotional decision because that tends to sound like I'm downplaying it, but like a fear-based, gut-based, like I just fucking can't do it, dude. I can't judge you for that. For every fucking body else, however, I really want to try to hold them to the fire and just say, like I've said several times during the show, the actual reality is either Trump or Harris. And I guarantee you Trump is worse for them, for everybody else. And like, if you're going to sit here, I love the fact that you brought up allyship. If you're going to sit here and claim to be an ally and talk about how you have all of these gay friends and all of these trans friends and all of these black friends and all of these Hispanic friends and all these different friends of different cultures and colors and backgrounds and sexualities and gender identities and all these things, and you don't understand why those people are fucking terrified of a Trump presidency and you need to do everything you possibly can to prevent it, I don't think that you actually have those friends. I think you just know those people and like maybe your acquaintances. Like it's just not reasonable. There's a big difference between like actually, but there's a big difference between talking about these issues and actually like making the hard fucking decision to do something you're really not comfortable with, maybe to make sure that people aren't fucking dying. At least not as many. Like flip, dude. $10 from James Rhodes. Forrest, I had a lucid dream. Fuck off immediately. We had last time I was on Skeptalk, 2 back-to-back hour-long calls about lucid dreams and why they prove Jesus. Forrest, I had a lucid dream, decided to test TJ's experience and call out to Jesus. Roland appeared to me instead, wanted to tell you he's boycotting Subway and demands Jersey Mike's. You know what? That's fair. That's fair. No problem.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. 10 lira? Is that what that is? From Herbie Shine. 10 pounds. Okay, yeah. Okay, 10 pounds. I don't know what things look like in other countries.
Not real money.
I'm just not real money.
Dollars.
I'm just an ignorant American here. From Herbie Shine says, I'm from the UK. I stopped voting for 15 to 20 years as I became disillusioned by politics. I'm ashamed of that decision now. I started voting again leading up to Brexit. Please go vote for Harris USA. My older brother, so proud of him, hadn't voted in 16 years. And he sent me a photo of his ballot this year and said, you finally got to me. I'm voting. And I told him I almost cried when I saw that. When I saw him in person, I gave him a big hug and I told him how proud of him I am. Overwhelmingly, I don't know Herbie's ethnicity, but overwhelmingly it's white people who feel privileged enough to excuse themselves from things like exercising the little power that they do have, and voting. And it's overwhelmingly like white men who will often say, I just don't get political. I just don't want to participate in politics. And they excuse themselves from that process. And they have the privilege to excuse themselves from that process. They are not being actively, they're not being actively confronted every single day with the way that the world has been set up to systematically and institutionally subjugate and oppress them in that acute way that people in more marginalized communities are. And so they go, like, I don't really see much difference between this party or that one in elections, and they excuse themselves from participating. And it's not until something really drastic like a Brexit happens that they realize, oh, geez, I probably shouldn't sit out, and it shouldn't take it happening to you for you to understand why you need to be a part of this work, and why. And it's honestly, voting is just not that hard, and it's a really simple thing you can do. And anyway, I'm proud of anybody who's showing up for the first time this year and filling out a ballot for the first time, either in a while or ever. Way to go.
I think it's a really important, just to parrot your point, that it is always cishet white dudes who have the least to lose with the Trump presidency who are willing to gamble with the Trump presidency. And that fucking sucks. $5 from Regato. I failed college algebra because I couldn't do exponents. As an atheist, I have trouble with the concept of a higher power. Very nice. Very nice.
$5 from Lex the Lion, who says, if the Whig Party was made to hate on one president, Andrew Jackson, if I remember right, can we get the Toupee Party to hate on Trump? Love the show. God damn it.
The dad jokes are strong. Yeah. $5 from Jason Jones. Laughing emoji. Samir arguing for an orange Nazi trying to make deals with America's enemies. I don't want to be friends with Putin or Kim Jong-un. Yeah. Like, you're talking about making deals, and all the dude does is look up to them and idolize them because they have armies and unquestioning sycophants around them, and that's all he's ever wanted and all he's ever had.
The one that's the craziest is whenever he jerks off Viktor Orban. It's crazy how he talks about Viktor Orban, and it's like Viktor Orban, like he's like, and he literally will say, like, that's the playbook right there. That's who we should be. And it's like Viktor Orban is doing everything that Donald Trump wants to do to American politics. If you look at how elections are going, where in Viktor Orban's country, it's so obvious that he has disenfranchised his people of their voting power and that he just steals elections. He wins elections with like 80 and 90% margins and stuff. Like it's really like ridiculously brazen how much he's just taken over and stolen the voting power from those people. And that's what Donald Trump wants to do.
Yep. As much as he jerks off Viktor Orban, he also, all those times he's just jerking off two invisible dudes every time he dances. You know what I'm talking about? I shouldn't make fun of anyone dancing. I can't fucking dance, but like this move is objectively funny. And like,
he loves that. He loves a little. Yeah. $5 from Heather Roki, who says, recently I shared a flight with a 70-year-old Indigenous Alaskan. They said the current admin has done more for First Nations than any in their lifetime. And that's true on a lot of issues. That's the thing, is like, I begrudgingly cast a vote for Joe Biden in 2020, as did a lot of people. Like, he was not the candidate that I was most excited to vote for. I would have sooner voted and more excitedly voted for a Buttigieg ticket or a Harris ticket or a Warren ticket or a Sanders ticket. But we were sort of force-fed Joe Biden by the DNC. And I was so impressed in the first just few years of his presidency how much progressive legislation was being pushed by that administration, how much they actually managed to get done. That's something that third party and protest voters are incapable of acknowledging. That's the problem. It's so hard to negotiate with these people because they never acknowledge when stuff actually gets done. They're never satisfied with anything. They can never call a win a win. And even though this administration has not been great on the climate, they've done more on climate change than any other modern administration. And that sounds crazy to say, but it's true. And it's also true for First Nations people.
Yeah, no, he's done a lot. I'm not happy with everything, but fuck, man, it's better than it would have been, and I was impressed by how much there was. $20 from Mimi. I appreciate this channel and chat so much. We appreciate you so much. Thank you very much for being here.
That's nice. $10 from Dade Murphy, who says, hashtag excuse me, Trump and his policies make my butthole itch. Yeah, that's probably in response to the Samir conversation that we were having about how Trump just wasn't that bad. And the Trump, I just think that people have amnesia about not just the Trump administration, but like Trump's influence over American politics did not end in 2020. It did not stop. He has been actively undermining the American political system throughout from 2015 on and making it worse. Yeah. And so
it is weird because like I mentioned earlier, like the insane double standards, how like, it's just for a second, you imagine if you think that Trump is worth half a damn or that you can criticize Harris in anything, just imagine for one moment that Kamala Harris had a bunch of kids with a bunch of different baby daddies and had several felony convictions under her, whether or not you thought they were reasonable, had been dragged to court a bunch of times, was not allowed to do business in New York because she had defrauded so many people and fucked around so much, was out here not knowing how to read the Bible, didn't know any Bible verses, didn't tell you, hasn't read a book, couldn't tell you about a single book that she's ever read, couldn't talk about anything. If she acted any of the ways that Trump did. Remember when fucking Obama was around and there was wall-to-wall news coverage because he wore a tan suit? And remember when there was wall-to-wall news coverage about him eating fucking Dijon mustard? And that was like for a week. We were talking about how a fucking asshole, privileged, elitist, blah, blah, blah. And so we have this situation now.
He had a Starbucks cup. And he did a Starbucks.
Yeah. And that was insane. Yeah. And then you've got the same people who were upset that he saluted a soldier while holding a Starbucks cup are the same people who will defend Donald Trump for saying that soldiers are losers and suckers. Doesn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Or going to pose in Arlington Cemetery and it doesn't give a fuck and just whatever. The same people, he tear gassed a fucking church to go in there and take publicity photos with the Bible upside down. And is now selling his own Bible. That's blasphemous as fuck. If there's anything that's blasphemous, it's that, right?
Yeah, a lot of those people like to. I mean, they know about the stuff that made it to Fox News, that made it in front of that made it to their TV and made it in front of them during the Obama administration. I saw something on TikTok that I'd never seen before. It was a video of this soldier talking about his experience meeting Barack Obama, and he said, "I'm a lifelong conservative, voted conservative my entire life, but there was this ceremony where we were welcoming home the caskets of like." A few dozen dead soldiers, and Barack Obama was there. And he said he stood and saluted for like an hour straight and he did not move. And he said it was a strong salute. And then they showed a video of it. It was a video of this ceremony where the president of the United States stood like this at attention for like an hour, did not move. And he saluted while they paraded these like caskets of dead soldiers through in front of all these soldiers. And I'm like, and that clip didn't become a viral sensation during the Obama administration. You would absolutely never see Donald Trump doing something like that, going and being like, and the fact that he did that and it wasn't for a cavalcade of media cameras and things like that. Like it wasn't like a highly it was an event that was filmed and put on all the different news networks. It was just something that was kind of a thing that he went and did as the president.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But that's what I'm talking about. We talk about these double standards. Like there was for a long time this big push to quit giving Trump attention, and I was big on that. I liked the idea, just quit fucking paying attention to him, quit giving him so much news. He's clearly manipulating the news to get more attention, to get more votes, all these things. Every time he says something outrageously stupid, does something outrageously stupid, he's getting on the news more. That's all he wants is the attention. And now you kind of look at it and it's like they're not giving as much attention when he does insane, egregious shit that nobody else would get away with, talking about fucking killing protesters, talking about killing American citizens, talking about killing political dissidents and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I know. He said, yeah, probably. Who cares? I don't even have to fact check. I'd believe you if you say it's true. He says crazy shit like that all the time. Fine, whatever. And meanwhile, we actually hold deep scrutiny on both sides for Paris or for anybody else. And it's like, my
favorite thing about that, though, about the the atmosphere that Trump created in the Trump era of American politics, where like, you know, every time he does something crazy, it's just like, hey, just wait. Once the 24-hour news cycle is up, he's going to do something to top it, and how that's resulted in people just kind of not even caring when he does that stuff. But my favorite thing is how this man has had 2 assassination attempts in just the last 6 months, and they were news for like a couple days, and then no one talked about them anymore. And it's the direct result. And it's a direct result of the atmosphere he created. He created an atmosphere where he couldn't get mileage out of his own assassination attempts. He couldn't get that to stay in the news cycle, because in the Donald Trump era of American politics, nothing is news. It's just like, whatever. And also, like, I'm one of those conspiracy theorists that believes that those 2 assassination attempts were attempts of his to try to, you know, but I'm just like, it didn't work. Like he couldn't even keep that as news. Yeah. Anyway,
it's bizarre. It's bizarre. 99 from Don't Follow Doug. Austin is supposed to stay out of the comments, but money talks. Thanks to you both for helping me be a cooler human. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. Also, did we skip that second Dade Murphy thing?
I think we did. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought we had. Let me go back.
Fuck you, Dave.
We just
you guys
talked
were just talking so goddamn long.
We talked for too much.
Excuse me, but Trump's fascist rhetoric lends credence to the notion that he may be a fascist for sure.
Yeah. That was a great part of the episode was when Samir said, show me evidence that Trump is a fascist. And we were like, how much time do you have? And then you listed off like,
let's go.
A very short list, but it was a very comprehensive list. And I just was like, Samir, did any of that? Did you at all go, oh, damn. Oh, you know, I love that you call them out on the thing of, you won't be able to, you can't. And it's like, well, hold on, let me try before I love that. It's so funny, these tactics of Trump supporters and of third-party supporters. Well, they'll make some claim and they'll be like, well, show me this. You can't. They'll be like, show me Kamala Harris saying anything that sounds even remotely sympathetic toward Palestinians. You can't. And it's like, well, hold on. Actually, I have so many clips.
There's a lot of it. Yeah.
I actually can do that. Yeah.
Right.
$10.
Is it good enough? No. Is it way better than what you thought it was? Hell yeah, dude. Like,
yeah, you were basically saying that I won't be able to find her saying anything that even sounds remotely sympathetic toward Palestinians. And in fact, I can find you so much. I can find you so many clips. $10 from Bomber Fox, who says, these people just need to realize that der Trumpengroper is literally campaigning to end democracy and their ability to even vote for a third party. Oh my God. The fact that's the question we're trying to ask Max, right? Is like, hey, play out the tape. When democracy ends, how does your vie for a third party, you know, how does your vie to have
that is this case with Max as well. Like with that particular call, like we never get anywhere. It's an hour-long conversation and we never get a straight answer on anything. So I'm cool with just $5 from Johannes Brahms. Duverger's law, haven't heard of this one, holds that voting third party in a first past the post system splits votes away from the most similar of the 2 major parties, i.e. Democrats and Republicans. Yeah, that's exactly, and that is what we were trying to get across. And Max is like, that's just speculation. That's a goddamn, it's math. It is called math.
Recently on Threads, some third-party voter wrote, and they were they thought they were writing a gotcha. So they were like, okay, so let's pretend that RFK had never dropped out. Would someone who used to vote for Trump voting for RFK mean that they're taking a vote away for Trump? Or does that bad logic only work when Harris voters are trying to shame third-party voters? And I responded, I quote posted it, I quote threaded it or whatever. And I was like, yes, that's literally what that means. If a person who otherwise would have voted for Trump is now voting for someone else, RFK, that means that it takes a vote away from the Trump campaign and helps his opponent. That's how that math works out. Like, yes, that's just what that literally means. Which is why converting a Trump voter to a Harris voter is a +2 because it's -1 from Trump, +1 to Harris. So, yeah.
Now, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. Not only do I love working with you, but I've been seeing you tear into these fucking third-party people. I'm like, we got to more people need to hear this. It's just absurd. The reasoning that they have, or the lack of reasoning that they have, like, oh, no, it's okay because I can do it to Trump. $10 to Steina, from Steina, the opposite of what I said. If abortion was illegal in my state, I would have died last year. Jay, you don't get to decide if I live or die. Lol, you're not that important. Don't tell that to Jay. I mean,
I was trying to ask Jay that question. I was trying to say, like, okay, because he was like, he was basically saying, well, it's okay if they die because the doctors can't save their life because that's what the law says. So I was like, okay, so it's not, so your whole thing of like murder is bad has nothing to do with like life is a thing that should be inherently protected. It's just that like the idea of murder, of someone killing someone else is bad, but someone dying because the doctors are not legally allowed to help them, that's okay. Like people are allowed to die because that's morally permissible. The law says that the doctors are not allowed to save that person's life, so that person is allowed to die. That's fine. So it's like, okay, in that sense, then it has nothing to do with life being this sacred thing that needs to be protected. It's just like the definition of how you define how a person dies. And anyway, state-sponsored death is...
Yeah, and even at the end of that, he was saying like, no, okay, so in these extreme rare scenarios where the life's at risk, then it's okay. All right. And also the initial thing was the big issue was like late-term abortion. So you're okay with abortion early on, you're okay with sometimes abortion later, it's just most of the later ones, that's the moral high ground. It's inconsistent, it makes no sense. It's much more consistent to say it's allowed if it's necessary, period. Done.
Absolutely.
Easy.
Yep. $5 from Sheridan Bernasconi, who says doctors take a Hippocratic oath, which states the words "do no harm." Great show. I just had on my podcast a doctor who you can find on Instagram. She's a good follow. Her name's Dr. Stacy DeLynn, and she has worked for Planned Parenthood for most of her career, and she, is a specialist in this. She knows what she's talking about. She's a professional with many years of professional experience. But yeah, she was talking about how when she was in medical school and she had to do her rotation in her OBGYN rotation, the doctor there wanted to impart on them that before Roe v. Wade, they were constantly getting patients in who were dying from botched abortions, that like this is something that happens whether it's legal or not. And this is something that everybody that goes through medical school is taught this, that like we do abortions often because they're going to happen with or without us, and we're the most capable of doing them where we prevent the most possible harm, where we're making sure that it's the safest possible way to do it. And our first mandate and dictate as medical professionals is to do no harm or do as little harm as possible.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when you talk about do no harm, like I feel like people like to romanticize that and say they can literally never cause any harm. What do you think surgery is? You are causing a lot of harm in order to have a better outcome. You're literally fucking cutting a person open in order to make them healthier in the long run. Like that's the thing about medicine. It isn't always, people like to pretend that it's just smiles and sparkles, and you go in there and you get a little shot and you're better. And it's like, no, it's fucking horrific. I'm not a doctor. I study biomedical science, and like it's even just on that outside, it's terrifying. It's not something that I'd want to have to be involved in. And so like, yeah, dude, that's the thing, man. Sometimes you have to terminate a pregnancy, which results in the ending of this. If you believe it's a life, great. It's no matter what, it is doing more good in the long run. But that's a whole other thing. Also, it said, what was that? Go back to that one. Go back to the super chat there. Sorry, what the doctor said to do no harm.
There you go.
Yeah, see, and this is also wrong because it says do no harm. It doesn't say great show in that Hippocratic oath. I don't think that's right. But I think the do no harm part is correct.
Yes, yeah.
I just want to call this one out. This is wrong in this way. Don't buy into this shit.
First, do no harm. Great show.
Yeah.
The Hippocratic oath.
$4.99 from Carla J. Funny that anti-abortionists never care about the mental health of the pregnant person. If they're suicidal, who cares? Fuck. # this was my story. Yeah, I think it's really important. That's why I talk about like when it sounds flippant and heartless to say that, somebody early on might just not be ready for a child, so they have to end this pregnancy. And you're like, oh, they just didn't want to have a kid. They could just get rid of it because they just don't want it. Yeah, you could be mentally not prepared for it. You could be financially not prepared for it. Your living situation could suck. You'd be in an abusive relationship. Maybe you really want a kid, but your partner's fucking awful. Like, there's 1,000,001 reasons why it is so much more charitable and so much better to have this child not be born than to bring them into the world where they are going to live a miserable, short, abused, neglectful life. It's just not appropriate. And you could save this person's life and not make them just a fucking walking incubator. I don't get it, man.
$5 from Sky High, who says, check your voter registration laws. I'm in Iowa and they have same-day voter registration. Thanks, pseudo God, I can vote. And yeah, absolutely. If you are not registered, if you're one of those people who looks like Forrest and I, and you're a white guy who's been sitting out of the political game because you just kind of don't want to be political, because getting political is just too stressful, and you just want to sit out, and you've been listening and you've been feeling a little bit of pressure, and you go, but I don't even know how to do it. Just go to vote.org and just see what the voter registration laws are in your state. And it's actually quite easy. You'll be surprised at how stress-free it is. They'll either mail you a ballot, or if there's no time for you to get a ballot mailed to you, often you can just find where a polling place is next to you, and you can just go in person. You fill it out real quick. Boom, 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 boom. Vote down ballot, vote blue down ballot, and rock and roll.
You go to your county election board, yo. Like that's an easy thing to do as well. They have everything you could possibly need there. I love going to the county election board and the bar association in my area, because you can go to the election board, you can get your voter registration done, and you can vote and everything. Most bar associations also have little pocket constitutions that they give you for free. This is true. I think I have dozens of these things laying around. Grab some of these. You can get literally for free boxes of these, just little pocket constitutions that you can then pass out to your friends and family. This is the rule book for the government. The law book for you is as tall as you and then some. It could wrap around the world. This is the whole rule book for the government. And you can get box of these. These ones are from the Oklahoma Bar Association in Oklahoma City. You can get, literally, you just ask for them. I don't know if this was a few years ago that I got these ones, but like I walked out of there with like 500 in a fucking box, and I was passing them out every time. I used to do voter registration booths at my local community college. I would set up a booth with registration cards and those, and I'd get everybody registered, give them a constitution, boom, boom, boom. And so like do that too. Go find those and hand them out to your friends and neighbors. $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. Here's my idea. Let's let politicians do law things and let doctors do medical things. Since a person being pregnant is a medical thing.
Ooh. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's wild. $5 from DMaster0011, who says, if cryptids were real, which would you most like to dissect? I don't know what that means, Forrest. You know what that means?
Cryptids? Cryptids are like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Mothman, these mythical creatures. Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, in that sense, I would most like to dissect Mothman, because I feel like Mothman would have some kind of like glowing intestines, or it would be something like you'd open it up and there would be like a black hole in there. Because I feel like Mothman is teleporting and like appearing and disappearing, and like Bigfoot, it would just be kind of like another mammal, and so would Loch Ness Monster. I think it would just be like dissecting any large, but like something that is a little more ethereal in the way that it travels and moves, and maybe has insides that are different from anything we've ever seen before. That it doesn't have an anatomy that functions the way that a typical creature would.
It's a toss up for me, because I actually I hadn't thought about that, because like I agree with you on Bigfoot. I know what the insides of a primate looks like. But like I was gonna say initially Loch Ness Monster, because supposedly Loch Ness Monster is some sort of like dinosaur or like some sort of aquatic reptile from the Mesozoic that survived this long. That would answer a lot of paleontology questions. That would be really cool to learn those things. But I think you might be onto something. If you get one that's truly supernatural, what's going inside there? So it's between that and Monkey at Typewriter's kid. I was supposed to dissect that kid a while ago, and like it just hasn't happened yet. But there's a whole lore with me dissecting children on this channel. It's been a while since you were here. But like that's definitely up there.
I didn't know the word cryptids. I learned that today. That's great.
$20 from Will Be Friend. Love Forrest and Austin, good stuff. I wish conservatives and big phony quotes libertarians weren't such cowards and would call in to defend their BS votes. Hashtag Team Arden, hashtag poop jokes, ? Yeah, that's for real. We got more third-party calls today than we have in a long time. Usually we're still fighting for them. But yeah, no, I wish more people would call and give us their best out, because I think that it would go to show that the arguments for voting third party are as vapid and redundant and just on the same repeating playbook as the arguments for creationism that we deal with here on this channel. It's just predictable as fuck.
They're also, their tactics, their rhetorical argumentative tactics are so similar to the tactics of Trump voters. Like the way that they constantly move the goalposts, no amount of evidence satisfies. They'll always start off with something really simple. Like a Trump voter will say, like, show me one instance of Trump being a threat to democracy. And you list off 20, and then they go like, okay, but show me one time where, like, look, democracy's still standing. They'll move the goalpost. Third party voters do the exact same thing. They also lack the same self-awareness. Like they're always projecting. They're always accusing Harris voters of doing, like, they'll be like, all you guys have is vote shaming. And it's like, literally, that's all you guys do, is accuse people who disagree with you of being child murderers and pro-genocide, and using shame as your primary tactic to bludgeon people into agreeing with you. It's crazy. Their tactics are so similar, and they also, like, they have all the same slogans, and the same way that creationists and Trump voters just have the same 20 slogans that you have to contend with over and over and over again. Third party voters and protest voters are the exact same way. It's the same 10 to 20 slogans that you'll see again and again in your comment sections. 10 fake dollars from Ectral Poe. Please vote while you can, American friends. Don't make a second Russia. I had enough of one. And yeah.
You pretty much got it. Yeah, hit the nail on the head. I'm putting emojis into the chat. I'm sorry while you're talking. I'm over here typing away like an asshole. How do I close the emoji bar? Go away. $5 more a monkey at typewriter. After listening to Max for this long, I think Max is just a Trumper who thinks he can psychologically fake out some lefties into voting third party. It's like Steve. We had this caller named Steve all the freaking time, calls over and over, and every single time, I'm voting third party and blah, blah, blah. And then after like an hour conversation, okay, yeah, I guess you're right. I'll vote for Harris. Calls in the next week. I'm voting third party because for the exact same reasons as before, only this time it's Jill Stein. And it just over and over and over. We get those a lot. And it's I think it's more to speaks to we're talking about psychology, how people just lock into their beliefs. And even when presented with good arguments, after they're kind of distant from those good arguments for a minute, they can kind of argue with the shampoo bottles in their shower a few more times and decide that they're right again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is $19.90 from Jeff Mason, who says, here, have $19.99. And he doesn't say, didn't actually say anything, but thank you, Jeff Mason. I just feel like I want to finish this out real patriotic. So I put my American glasses back on.
I got this. I'll help as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's got guns and eagles. I want to use that in a video sometime, but I don't know how.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is this you or me?
I'll do this one since Jeff Mason was nothing. $5 for Monkey at Typewriter. This is just a chat to say thank you, Matt. You know why. Also, thank you for coming back, Austin. You're always a treat. Hashtag dissection ain't a joke.
True.
Thank you. That's nice. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's true though. It takes a long time. Someday that's what we should do. We should have like a they have like those hype houses, like where all the creators get together and they do like a crazy thing and they make a bunch of collaboration videos. You guys should I should get you and like Good Trouble and Generic Art Dad and all the other cool people on TikTok, and all you guys come to Tulsa and visit the anatomy lab at my university, and we'll all dissect people together. It'll be great. You can just dig around in some bodies and learn some cool stuff about human anatomy, and that'll be the content. We'll compete with the Institute of Human Anatomy on TikTok.
If I can do that without having a panic attack or passing out, then yeah, let's do it.
For real. 10 pounds from the fuzzy logic. Left-wing votes in blue states are critical for down-ballot races. If Harris wins, she'll need Dems in Congress to pass laws and confirm judges. And if Trump wins, we'll need Congress to block him. Yeah. It's like people like to pretend that you can just live in a not a swing state and it doesn't fucking matter. And it's like, no, dude.
I just would love to see what would happen if everybody who buys into the electoral college propaganda that some states are spoken for and can't. I would just love to see what happened if just everybody who would vote but it feels discouraged by that reality actually showed up. I would just out of curiosity, just to like see, like, is Utah, my home state, actually that red, or is it just that hundreds of thousands of people in that state don't bother filling out a ballot because they figure the state is spoken for? I would just be so curious to actually,
For real. Also, to the moderately okay, the person in chat who's saying that it's Trump or bust, you have had hours to call in. I try again next time, because you're not going to just spew shit in our chat. Although I will say I'm on this Sunday with we got I think tomorrow we got Matt and Josie Caballero doing Also Because I Won, and Josie's fucking amazing. You should listen to what she says. And then on Sunday I'm hosting the Sunday show with Jimmy, and I think I'm doing the Sunday show after dark as well, but I don't think that's confirmed. And then we got the big ass presidential show as well. You have so many options to call in rather than just spewing nonsense in the chat and being banned. $4.99 from Carla J, commiserating and hopefully celebrating on disc on election night. I don't know what celebrating on disc means. A couple of blue hearts. Hashtag what the cool kids, where the cool kids hang out. Where the cool kids hang out is in the cadaver lab, because it's actually quite cool in there. We keep it pretty cold on purpose to make sure.
When I read that, I thought you might know what celebrating on disc means because you're here more often than I am, but I'm glad to know we both don't know. Yeah, my friends on election day have all decided that we're all going to be so stressed out that we want to support each other that day. So we're having a little get together at my friend's house, and we had a plan. We had a meeting last night to plan what we're doing, and we're like, okay, all day long we're gonna like play games and have fun, but intermittently in between games we're gonna turn the TV on and check progress and see where things are at, and like, you know, check in and then turn the TV off and go back to playing games and like trying to self-soothe and help each other, and then we're going to turn the TV on, check in. But so we've got a game plan of how we're going to spend Tuesday and how we're going to try to best take care of our mental health.
Love that.
Disc is Discord, by the way.
Yeah,
that's
a lot of people in chat. A lot of people in the chat are saying Discord and trying to explain that. I don't know how all these people in chat could be so wrong. It's I don't think that's what it is at all. I think they're all damn liars and they're just jumping on a trend here. It clearly means something completely different.
Yeah. $10 from Yuri Barsukov says, to add to the pro-life, pro-choice, many good OBGYN doctors understandably leave states with harsh laws, and that adds risk for people that need care urgently. Abortion is healthcare, and this is true. Many healthcare professionals are terrified to practice reproductive healthcare in states with strict abortion laws because the state is telling them that if they get it wrong, if they make a value judgment on a patient and they decide that they need to intervene for the sake of that patient's life, and the state disagrees with them, they could lose their license, or worse, they could go to prison for being an accessory to murder or for just straight up murder. It's really, really serious. It's really fucked up what anti-choice laws do. And the way that the ripple effect that has, you know, of lots of good doctors leaving these states in droves and leaving their patients in the dust. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. $5 from One Kid Typewriter. There once was a fellow named Max, deeply resistant to facts. He feigned the high ground with no argument sound, and our minds felt under attack. Creative and awful.
$5 from SJL. You could argue that the only reason Israel is not called terrorist is because they are a state. You could also argue that the only reason the United States military and government is not a terrorist organization is because we're one of the largest military forces in the world. But Israel and the United States are terrorist colonial projects, imperialist projects that go around the world, basically holding everybody at gunpoint and saying, fuck with us and find out, and fuck with us at your own peril. I mean, just as disproportionate and inappropriate as Israel's response to 10/7 has been, the United States is the exact same way, and we have been throughout our entire history of just like the basic message to the global community has been, you can come over here and pick a fight with us, but for every punch in the nose you give us, we will shoot 30 members of your family at point blank range with a shotgun. And, you know, like that's sort of the bargain that we make. And we're a pretty terrifying force in the world. And yeah, so is the IDF and so is the Israeli military.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And like I mentioned earlier, like 70% of the funding for this genocide has been from us. So like when Israel fucks around and commits terrorist acts in Lebanon, you know, like I mentioned, you know, planting bombs and pagers and then intentionally exploding those bombs while they are in like civilian areas and hospitals and shit. They killed kids with that. Anybody else, literally anybody else who ever did that for any reason would rightly be called terrorist. And here we have these guys doing it because they know they have the backing of the United States. If anybody hits them back, they've got the entire fucking United States military coming against them. And you mentioned, you know, for every time you punch me in the nose, I'm going to shotgun blast one of your kids or something like that. Like it's the initial number, which has since been walked back quite a bit, on October 7th was 1,200 people that were killed by Hamas. I'm willing to say, like, I even though that number has been walked back, at even that high number, horrific amount of people that have been killed. Absolutely, wholly, completely unacceptable. Israel has now killed, at the small conservative estimate, 34 times more people in Gaza alone, in this little strip that they fucking created, this little boxed-in prison that they've made. They've killed 34 times as many people. Tell me a situation where you would call it self-fucking-defense for you hit me, so I hit you and 33 other random people that are standing next to you, most of them children. Tell me how you would call that self-defense. Ever. You wouldn't. It's disproportionate monstrosity. It's absolutely fucking evil. And yet people like fucking Max are calling it, oh, they deserve it because some bad guy, some terrorist did some terrorism, and that means everybody who looks like those terrorists also deserves to die. And somehow also I'm against racial prejudice. What?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can go on about that for a long time. $4.99 from Carla J. You're welcome at Galasia789 with some emojis. This is some sort of inside joke in the cat. Galasia789, by the way, one of our moderators. And I'll call them out again because they sent me this.
Whoa, cool. Gift. Wow.
Yeah.
That looks like that. It almost looks like you would be the white rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, like the white rabbit that, you know.
Yeah. This was the we had a show a little while ago where we were talking about supernatural claims, and one of the other co-hosts was talking about the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny, and tripped over his tongue and talked about the Tooth Bunny for a while. And so, like that's what this is. This is the Tooth Bunny. The Tooth Bunny wants your teeth. The Tooth Bunny will get your teeth. Brush your fucking teeth to protect them from the Tooth Bunny. He's coming for your teeth.
Terrifying. I wouldn't mind dissecting. I wouldn't mind dissecting the Tooth Bunny. I'd be interested to see.
You find a lot of teeth in there.
Yeah. $5 from Metallic Almonds, who says, I'm in South Carolina. Family supports Trump, but I still voted early for Harris this week. Thank you, Forrest, Arden, and the rest of team for educating and entertaining me. Thank you for your vote. You know, yeah, I've got conservative people in my family. I've got people who are voting for Trump in my family. And I think it's a very American thing to have a family that is split on who they support politically and who they vote for. But thank you for doing the smart thing.
I think it was Kate Bacon, who's another science communicator. She's on Threads and stuff as well. And she posted a thing. It was like, in quotes, like, I'm canceling out my husband's vote. And she's like, babe, cancel your marriage. Like, at this point. $5 if you have to fucking vote against the man, or cancel out the vote of the guy who thinks that you need to be a fucking incubator. $5 from Will Befriend. Trump's plan would phase out overtime hours, so there wouldn't be anything to not tax. Don't fall for the games. Read Project 2025. And you don't get porn either. There's no overtime hours, and you have like a lot of Christian nationalism and a lot of laws revolving around Christianity, and also like it destroys the Department of Education, and also pornography is disallowed. So like, if you ever enjoy fapping, vote anti-Trump.
It's not an exaggeration to say that Gilead from The Handmaid's Tale, if you've watched that show, when you watch that and go, geez, what a terrible place to live in, that is conservatives, Christian nationalists watch that show and go, oh man, we're so close. We can have that. And it's not an exaggeration to say that is the end game of Project 2025. That is the goal, is to create an absolute hell world to live in. $5 from
Unless
SJL.
You're white, Christian, male, cisgendered, heterosexual, and rich. If you're all of those things, it's a great place to live.
Yeah. $5 from SJL. I always say that I am anti-abortion and fully pro-choice. I've been told multiple times that I can't hold both positions.
You absolutely can. You absolutely can. The same reason that I am fully in support of same-sex marriage, and yet I do not plan on marrying any men, not even one. So, like, you can absolutely hold both positions. Don't have an abortion, and you're fine. Just don't stop other people from doing it.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot. Over the years, I've talked about the idea of ideological pluralism, that we live in an ideologically pluralist society. We have a lot of a very big diversity of ideologies and ideas, and the only way that we can honor our ideological plurality as a society is for abortion to be legal, because what legal safe abortion does is it says, if you believe that abortion is bad, there is no law forcing you to have an abortion. Even if the doctors say, hey, if you carry this pregnancy to term, you're going to die, you have the right to choose to say, I'm going to carry the pregnancy and roll the dice. And if I die, I die. But it goes against my personal value system to have an abortion, even if it's a life-saving abortion. You have the freedom to make that choice for yourself and for your own personal health. And the state cannot intervene and force you to make a different choice. The problem with anti-abortion and anti-choice laws is that they force everybody, the entire country, to live by the moral code and the value set of a minority of people. We all have to have laws that are written by unpopular value systems. And so, yeah, you can absolutely say, for me and my personal body, I would never have an abortion, but I believe that other people should have the right to be able to make that choice for themselves. And you can have both of those positions can coexist.
I think that's a really important thing that not a lot of people like talk about in these things, is like, more freedom means more freedom for everybody. And like less freedom, you are restricting your own rights as well. They just happen to be rights that you don't plan on using. But the slippery slope on this situation, if you're not careful, is that it eventually will become rights that you are using. That's why fascism is so fucking stupid. One of the many reasons. You see these fucking like oxygen thieves out here arguing like for more control and for more fascist control, and for getting rid of trans people, getting rid of immigrants, getting rid of gay people, getting rid of drag queens, whatever like that. Like, as long as you are attacking these other groups and saying they don't belong in society, you are just a different group in line. Like that, it is as long as you are useful. Even the Nazis fought against other Nazis that weren't Nazi enough. That's the whole point of that kind of ideology.
The leopards will eat your face.
They absolutely will. The
leopards will eat your face. Yeah. All right. Is that it for super chats? Is that it? Are we?
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if we had read this one or not. I got distracted.
God damn you,
Arden. No problem. You're doing great, Arden. Go ahead, Forrest.
$10 from Mr. Boricua. For Mr. Archer, Spicy Four. Oh, that was instructions for you. Spicy Four is bringing the heat on dishonest callers. Happy to have you here, Mr. Archer. Nice personality mesh with Forrest. Good show. Austin and I can pretend to get along for a show.
Yeah, absolutely. $10 from President Starscream. A person walks into a bar. They ask the bartender, "Can I use your bathroom?" It's pretty urgent. The bartender says, "Sorry, bathrooms are for customers only." So the person sits down on a stool. Wait, did I miss it?
I don't have another one from Starscream here. Let me
Person walks into a bar, they ask the bartender, "Can I use your bathroom?" It's pretty urgent. The bartender says, "Sorry, bathrooms are for customers only." So the person sits down on a stool. Is the joke just that, like, to be a customer at a bar, all you got to do is sit down? Am I missing it?
I think it is just pointing out the irony of the situation. That as soon as they sit down, maybe the joke is the word stool, that they sit down on a poop.
Oh, because they shit their pants. They couldn't use the bathroom. It was urgent.
So they sit on a stool.
And they sit down on the stool that is in their pants.
Yeah. I bet that's what it is.
All right.
Yeah. I'm into it. I'm into it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can read
5
this
bucks from John Christopher. Just to let you know, I've already voted for Harris. Thank you very much. Reaganomics never works, and that's all Trump on Republicans have to offer. It's just trickle down bullshit. And remember, trickle down only works if you're getting pissed on.
$5 from Darren White. That's funny. It only works if you're getting pissed on. $5 from Darren White. Good Lord, that doesn't exist. I hope Tuesday goes well. I don't know what else to say other than thanks for the show. Vote. I'm not sure what this is in reference to. It seems like Darren was referencing something very specific, but yeah, I hope Tuesday goes well as well.
Tuesday's election day.
Yep.
That's what he was referencing.
Well, he said, "Good Lord, he said, "Good Lord, that doesn't exist," and I don't know what someone said. I think he was saying that doesn't exist. Yeah.
Who knows? $5 fake from Herbie Shine. Austin's assessment of me not voting, privileged white guy, unfortunately, was spot on. I'm sure that means I was a dick. Live and learn, man. We get better with time. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
We all make mistakes, including me, and everybody alive. $5 from Lee Uphold says, "Help my MAGA mom believe. My MAGA mom believes reptile people, underground civilization, satanic cabal, the moon was stolen, much more." I don't know if we can help you with that. When people are when people are that far down in the rabbit hole, it's like, well. Like I have a brother who is voting for Trump for the first. So I have a brother who voted for the first time in 16 years, and he voted for Harris. And I have another brother who told me that for the first time in the Trump era, he thinks he's going to vote for Trump this election cycle. I don't know how it happened. It's been but he's much more reachable to me and much more amenable to conversation and discussion than somebody who's that far deep down the QAnon conspiracy theory rabbit hole.
Tell her to call into the show. Don't really, though. That would be mean to everyone involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bring it back. Did we skip one?
There it is. No, there it is. We got
brought it back.
Okay. Is it me? $4.99 from Life is Literary. How do we talk to the fellow leftists after this when Trump wins? Given, in my opinion, it'll largely be the left's fault for either not voting or voting third party. I think it's a cautionary tale. There's a lot of people out there that are talking about how in 2016 they were on the burn your bus train and they protest voted then, and then we got Trump the first time and they deeply regret it. And so, like, man, you gotta forgive if somebody makes a bad choice, but like, holy shit, it's hard.
Yep. $20 from Jay Anderson, who says, "We knew who Trump was when he made fun of a disabled reporter. Biden says, at least I got Trump to work on a garbage truck. Kamala, at least I got Trump to work at McDonald's." Yeah, I mean, this is the thing about Donald Trump is, like, if you don't know who Donald Trump is by now, if you've been around for the last 9 years and you don't know who Donald Trump is as a politician, what Trump's brand of politics is, if you're still pretending, I mean, it's been one thing after another with this guy. Like, you can't adequately even begin to list the amount of things that he has done in his political career that would have ended anyone else's career before the Trump era. I mean, and even during the Trump era, like, nobody else in politics can get away with the things that he gets away with. But he is making it increasingly more acceptable to be as insane as he is and still have a job. That's why you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and people, like Matt Gaetz and Ron DeSantis, who are finding, success in politics. And that's why JD Vance is the coward that he is, because JD Vance used to be honest about who Donald Trump is, but then he realized that you can be successful and make money in politics if you just pretend like you didn't say Donald Trump is America's Hitler and you become Donald Trump's VP running mate instead. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's absolutely right. Like the amount of people that are now sycophants to Trump that were at one point strongly against him. Yeah. Ted Cruz, spineless fucking worm. $20 from Jay Anderson. We knew who Trump. Did we just read this? Yes.
Yeah, we just read that, so we can go on to the next one.
There's only 7 left, so we should be able to get through.
Except for that one that just came in.
Yes, except for the one that just came in. So if you want to get through, you gotta go.
Let's move fast. Here we go.
Yeah. 5 colorful ass dollars from Crystal W. Cishet white dudes have nothing to lose except for porn. Yeah, it's yes.
And that's big.
That should get everyone to vote.
Cishet white dudes, come on. £5 from the Fuzzy Logic says, also, it's worth repeating that when we say end of democracy, we don't mean there won't be elections anymore. They just won't be at all free or fair. And Mark, everybody knows this, but like, if Harris wins on Tuesday, we know a few things are going to happen. We know that Donald Trump is going to declare victory early before tabulation is finished. And that if Harris is declared the winner, he is going to say that the election was stolen. And he already has put mechanisms and people in place to try to steal the election for him. So we're not going to be out of the woods if Harris gets a popular and electoral victory. Donald Trump and the Republicans are going to continue to do everything they can to try to make sure that elections are not carried out fairly in America. And hopefully we can just rely on the few people who have some decency left to try to uphold fairness in elections.
He's been priming his base for a long time to already accept that this election is fraudulent. He's been priming them for a long time, getting used to that idea.
Only if he loses. It's only fraudulent if he loses. Yeah.
Gosh. $10 from Brian Jones for the abortion chat. When he agreed that it was okay to save a life, I always want to ask them who should make that decision on if it will be a life or not, doctor or politician. But the thing is, he thinks he knows more than the doctor, so it doesn't matter.
Right. Exactly. Yep. $4.99 from Homespun Cover says, Melania has an audiobook for sale. I wish I knew someone who bought it so I could hear her say moose and squirrel. Boy, I know some people that will buy stuff I bet Walter Masterson would buy that.
For sure. $9.99 from Poor Claire. Is there a point in phone banking in Kentucky? What is canvassing? If I don't know much, especially about economics, should I not? I can't argue about politics like y'all. Will they tell me what to say? So yeah, if you want to call either the local Democratic Party in your area, or you can actually go onto Harris's campaign website and you can sign up as a volunteer there, and they'll get you in touch with people. But I would recommend calling the local Democratic Party in your area and starting with them. If you don't know much about stuff, I would recommend going to guides.vote. Guides.vote is an awesome website which shows side-by-side comparisons of people in lots of different elections, including the presidential election. And you can pick which issue you're talking about, and it gives you direct quotes from those people with clickable links to where they said that clearly details out in one paragraph what their actual position is on a lot of different shit. Makes it very easy to compare and contrast and talk to people about these things. I would recommend starting with that. And if you don't want to do phone banking, canvassing is great. Helps you get out there and knock on doors, talk to people, put out flyers. If you don't want to talk to people, try to get people just informed. There's a lot of ways you can help. But I would recommend calling your local Democratic Party. Each county, I think, has one, if not each city. And they should have an office that you can talk to them and get yard signs, get flyers, get information, get scripts to call people with, all sorts of stuff.
Right on.
Phone banking also from Texas. I phone banked in Wisconsin this week, and they literally have a dialogue tree. Oh, they voted for Harris. Cool. Here's the next question to ask. Super straightforward.
Nice.
Cool. $5 from Brian Jones, who says, hey, Forrest, who do we need to talk to get a show with you and Erika? If you do, I'll call in and I'll give you undeniable proof of God.
I don't believe you, but it'll happen someday, I'm sure. $5 from Godfrey N. Good. Just realizing that I can't super chat super words and phrases. What did you try to super chat? What did you try to put out there? I'm going to try to super chat right now.
$5 from Julia Scala, who says, should we be preparing for political violence and the second January 6th attack following a Kamala win? Is there a way to return to normalcy? Unfortunately, I do think that we should be preparing for any and all scenarios in which the conservative wing of politics in America will try to steal the election. And it's going to be a really difficult thing to kind of argue or reconcile, because if that happens, like Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has all but said he will refuse to certify with any other result other than a Trump victory, which means that likely we could be in a scenario where the sitting administration will have to refuse to give up the White House and get like generals involved to say like, hey, they're not following the rules. Like there could be a lot of really, really scary situations. I don't think that I think we're just gonna have to sort of wait and see how it plays out, but don't expect Donald Trump to concede or go quietly if he loses on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's for sure. It's going to be a problem no matter how you slice it. I recommend everybody pick up a copy of this book called On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. Short little read. You can fit it in your pocket unless you're wearing women's pants. And you can like learn a whole bunch of it's just really, really insightful red flags to look out for. And that kind of shit that we see on January 6th and will almost inevitably see again is part of it. And as the fucking Capitol Police better be fucking prepared, because it would be stupid for them not to be prepared. Honestly, considering what we've already seen and the rhetoric that we've been seeing for the past few months, it would be stupid for them not to be prepared, because they have literally been priming the pump for actual insanity. With that, Austin, I fucking love having you on, dude. You're a great co-host. You're a lot of fun. You're very cool on the calls. Let me know if you ever want to do anything else together. I'll do your podcast or whatever like that sometime.
Yeah, anytime, and I'll reach out to you about doing my show. And if people want to listen to my show, it's called People Pleaser with Austin Archer. You can find it on my YouTube channel. You can find it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever. But Forrest does it sometimes, and I'm happy to come back on the line anytime. I have a blast every time I'm here. So this was a lot of fun.
It's before we wrap up, one last thing. I want to two last things. Number one, I want to thank our producer Arden, as well as our moderators, our call screeners, all the cool people in the chat that didn't have to get banned for spewing their fucking ridiculous shit, and all of our patrons and our channel members who make this channel a reality, as well as all of our super chatters and donors and the people who help out in those ways as well. You're all awesome. Also, because I hear that this is a thing now, another just running bit is this kind of thing. Did you know that diarrhea is a heritable condition? It runs in your genes.
Oh, I just thought, okay. Yeah. I sat on a stool and the diarrhea was running in my jeans, and I sharted in my pants.
The becoming more of a thing. Yeah, it's a bad time.
Good.
Anyway,
it's good.
That's our show, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being here. Austin, you're great. Everybody go follow Austin on all the things. He's really neat, and he makes really good music, and you should go listen to it. I think Bandcamp is the big one that you get paid the most on, so everybody go fucking support him on Bandcamp, because that's pretty tight.
Yeah, you can find all my links at my page and all my stuff, and go vote.
Yeah. Bye.